Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Swinging a line drive down the right field line. It's a fair ball hitting on the grass, rolling into the corner. Reyes has scored. Devers to third. He's held there, and Turner has done it again with an RBI double, and the Red Sox take a 6-5 lead. A pitch away, and he lined a bullet. No chance for McKinney, the right fielder, to grab it.
Deep drive to left off the bat of Amaya. This ball's got a chance. Gone! Long home run for the rookie catcher, Miguel Amaya. And the Cubs lead 4-1.
Springer slams a breaking ball to left, and that ball is gone. Third home run in 4 batters for the Blue Jays. It's 9-2. They just won't stop hitting homers today in Cincinnati.
Yates throws, and it is ball 4. He walked him. Missed low with a fastball. A 4-pitch walk to Jock Peterson. It comes with the bases loaded in the 9th inning, and the Giants take a 4-3 lead.
0-1 pitch. Mateo hits it high and deep. Left field. Kemp back. Giving way to Butler. He can't make the catch. It bangs off the wall. Mateo around second. Past third. He's going to try and score. Jorge Mateo. An inside the park home run.
Good morning, everybody. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hurrdat Sports Radio. We are live from the in-progress renovation of Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Robbie Lula in the seat for the first hour. This is until Wednesday or Thursday. I think are you on? I can't hear you, but sometimes it's just you're actually going over the radio. Right, Shane? That's how it is. Like, if we can't hear it in the headset, but he's still going over the radio.
That is correct.
Yeah, see. Technology. Can't live with it, can't live without it. That's what Shane said about...
Yeah, so it looks a little different.
Oh, there you go.
All the tables and chairs are out, so it's just a big empty space right now. And
it's always a big empty space in the morning for us.
True. But it's more empty because there's no seats basically in the entire restaurant right now. Shane said they got the new sign out front, so that'll be fun. Yeah, they're ready to reopen on the 28th.
Yeah, look good when it pulled up. Not too shabby. Next Monday is the big reopening, so we are looking forward to that. That's the 28th, right?
Yep, reopening.
Carry the 2.
It's divided by...
You know what? Let me use the windows here to do my math because it's so foggy and there's condensation all over the door that we could do plenty of math problems on there and be fine. It could probably look like Goodwill Hunting. Like we could go from one end to the other and solve like the most insane mathematical equation. But when I opened the door this morning, I told you it was probably like if you're at West Side's practice, we'll take DB, for example, and after practice, he just went up to Caleb and just used his left hand and just wiped the left side of Caleb's face. Like, that's how it feels to open up a door handle today.
Yeah, it's a little moist.
That's not a word that some people like to hear there.
It's a little muggy and gross out today, but yeah, it's welcome to... Yeah, that thing wet, Shane. Welcome to Nebraska, I guess. In it's supposed to be cooling down about now. Instead, no, gonna have hottest days of the year.
102, right? That's what it's at. What is the heat index?
Yesterday I think it was pretty close to 120. I saw somebody say because they were out.
Is that warm?
It's a little warm. They were out at the Pink concert last night, which was outdoor at TD Ameritrade.
Oh.
And so, yeah, they're like, yeah, the heat index of about 120. I would not listen. Pink isn't like my jam anyway. Don't, if it's for you, that's cool. But,
well, I like the color.
There.
Oh, you mean the artist?
Yeah, there is not a lot of people in the world I would spend that time outside for in the conditions that were there yesterday.
What about Schick and Nick?
Schick and Nick, I might have. I had a better chance with Schick and Nick than you would with Pink. Thankfully, they were inside here in our lovely space. That to close.
How was that,
dude? It was so much fun. They were closing down the Hail Varsity Club last event there last night. It was so much fun, and just the to see how many people were here. I mean, from where we're at on the studio stage, the H&H Chevrolet stage, all the way back. I mean, this place was.
I saw the
packed.
photo. I saw the selfie. I couldn't be here. I was at home with the fiance. Yesterday was a pretty important day for her.
Sure.
It was the day that she lost her father. So, I spent the day at home, just making sure that she was, A-okay. So I was sad that I couldn't miss the event, but I was definitely in the right place. So that's why I ask all these questions.
Yeah.
Because I was really curious because, as you pointed out, not only from left to right, where we're sitting on the stage, but deep
all the way
I
back.
mean, you go to the back wall, and what was cool about it too is with these big double doors, you can sit people all the way back there, and they can still get the experience. Now, were Schick and Nick on the TVs or no?
Yeah, so they were on the TV, at least in here. So I assume they were out there as well. It's just so cool to see kind of the, communities may be a strong word, but, I'll call it that, kind of the community that their show has created. And, we were talking about this before we went on the air, but it's crazy to think they did a show for less than 3 years, which in the grand scheme of radio shows is not a super long time, right? And they were off the air between when they started the podcast and when they went off the air on their previous show. They were off the air for 8 or 9 years in between that.
Themselves, right? Like
together. Yeah. Like obviously Nick had his stuff that he's been doing. Schick has been at ESPN for a long time, basically since he left Omaha in 20.
And we'll talk to Matt Schick later on today in the show.
Yeah, which he's terrific. But it's crazy to think the show had not existed for 8 or 9 years and people still like clamored for it. Obviously the podcast has been a huge success. And they'll tell you, like, people still come up to them, 8, 10, 12 years later and yell out lines from their show that happened back in, 2009 to 2011. It's really the kind of like following and devotion. Like when you do what we do, it's the thing that you strive for, right? And it's frankly, it's inspirational.
I mean, we do it for the listeners.
Yeah.
We don't do it for us.
It's inspirational because
I do it for the relationships that I make with people.
Yeah. Well, and I do it, honestly, because I've been on the other side of the mic, right? Where I've been and still am, I still work a day job. Like you go and it helps you get through your day, and like maybe you're having a tough time at work, and it's just these are the people that get you through your day. They end up feeling like friends, even if you've been. I met Matt Schick for the first time last night.
That's crazy.
I've talked to him dozens of times doing interviews and stuff like this. I know Nick a little bit better just because he's still in Omaha, and with Creighton stuff, we run into each other all the time. And I used to fill in on his old show when he would go on the road to call games all the time. And so I know Nick a little bit better, but this is the first time I had ever met Matt Schick, and it felt like I was just seeing an old friend again because of how much they let you into their lives and things like that when you're doing the show. And that's really kind of what we all aspire to do when we do this type of thing, is just to provide that sense of friendship and connection and things like that. That's why I do this. That's because I've been the person that needs that in their daily life. And Schick and Nick is the first show I listened to on a daily basis. It was, I'd be driving to college every morning from my parents' house, and I would listen to him on the radio every day. And like it's one of those shows that like I remember where I was when certain memorable events or bits happened on the show. Like I remember what I was doing. Like they had this, it's kind of a weird topic now because of how Bill Cosby ended up being, but they had like a 45-minute interview with Bill Cosby in like 2011. I missed a job interview because I didn't want to stop listening to the show.
Incredible.
I was in my car.
Hopefully the job interview was for like McDonald's drive-through worker and not for pursuing your career.
It was some like random sales position or something, and I didn't really want to do it anyway, but I was kind of looking for a new job, and I was like, so I was in the car when they started the interview, and I'm driving to this place, and I'm like, okay, it should end about the same time. But like I said, they ended up talking to him. I mean, Shane, you were there, right?
Oh, I remember exactly where I was at.
Yeah, so
I was sitting like right in a chair like I am right now.
Oh, yeah? I was probably sitting in a chair somewhere too, Shane.
And so I'm
such a jerk.
I'm driving to this interview, and it seems like they're not done with their conversation and aren't going to be for a while. And so I'm just sitting in the car, and I'm waiting as long as I can before I have to go in. And then at some point I just decided, I was like, yeah, I'm not getting out of the car. And so like that's
great.
It's crazy. Kind of just
you said 45 minutes, though. I'm thinking about a world where we wouldn't have hard outs.
Oh yeah, it was in the
Shane, what would that be like?
It'd be an interesting world. You know, the funny thing about that is, and I was just thinking about not necessarily that interview, but that interview is a perfect example, is back in that time, it was before Twitter, and it was before, you did all this
2011
StreamYard stuff. It was in the time of radio where they needed to be on the guest, like Bill Cosby needed to be on the radio actually to get his point across.
Okay. Sure.
Whereas now they would just put a video out on Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't even, getting somebody like that nowadays is extremely hard compared to what it was back then.
Yeah, because he was doing some shows in Omaha either that weekend or coming up there pretty soon. So that's why they got him, is they were promoting some of the stand-up shows he was doing. And Shane's right. You don't get a ton of that anymore unless kind of whatever radio station you're working with is part of a sponsorship for the events or whatever. So on music stations, sometimes you can get like stars that are coming through town or whatever. But yeah, it was a super random thing for Schick and Nick to be interviewing Bill Cosby. But then it was also just kind of one of the most incredible like pieces of radio I've ever heard, because you've got these two guys who obviously have like great senses of humor in and of themselves. And then you've got, for whatever he is or has been as a person, one of the funniest people that's ever lived in Bill Cosby.
Right.
And it was just this incredible, like, coming together of these two worlds. And like I said, it was like a 45-minute interview. I skipped a job interview for it so I wouldn't miss it, because it was harder to find stuff and like online and on podcasts and stuff back then. I don't even know. Did you guys even podcast the show back then, Shane?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think they started.
2011, I don't think so.
Yeah, like podcasts were like in their very infancy, and you weren't really putting radio shows on podcasts yet. And that's kind of the like almost charm about the kind of the Schick and Nick memories, right? Is that I'm sure those recordings exist somewhere in the archives of, if they haven't deleted them.
Oh, I have them.
So Shane, good. I'm glad Shane has them. But like they don't exist on the internet, right? They're not just out there. You can't go back through these archives of a podcast to just go and find them. And so it's almost
radio gold.
It feels almost kind of like a fever dream. Like, was that a real thing? Did that happen? Like, did Nick Baugh really say explodes all over my chest on live radio? And he did twice.
And Nick Baugh says a few things.
Salsa explodes all over my chest.
Nice.
So the best one, and I told Nick this last night when I talked to him for a minute, was, so he said that that's the original line. And then back in like 2010, there was an NBA lockout. And I don't know if you remember, some of the stars kind of hinted at like, oh, maybe we'll start our own league. And Nick's like, because obviously Nick played at Kansas and Creighton. He's like, if you need some guys to fill in for that league, I'd be happy to step in, maybe take a charge from LeBron James. And then he like goes into pretend play-by-play mode, and he goes, LeBron James coming down the lane, explodes all over my chest. I almost drove off the road. And yeah, so it was
Dominion.
It was Dominion. Probably the greatest drops of all time.
He's got some of the best one-liners out there, which is what that makes him so attractable to an audience.
Yeah,
right?
they're so relatable,
because
right?
you know a Nick Baugh.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody knows a Nick Baugh without actually knowing Nick Baugh. It's like your friend that has the best one-liners that can always make you laugh. And you're like, man, like, why can't I be just naturally funny like you? That is Nick Baugh. Like, for me,
yeah,
it's Brad Thompson who does the Cardinals color commentating, because I used to work with them at ESPN Radio in St. Louis.
Okay.
He had the best one-liners. The best. Like,
Yeah.
if you put him and Brad Thompson in a room, they would kill you just from laughter. Everybody also knows a Matt Schick.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Somebody that is a family guy. Like, how many kids does Schick have? 3, 4?
He's got 5.
5 kids,
Yeah.
okay. Somebody that it's just that open personality that's straight and narrow, but can really kind of fall off the road a little bit, but come back on.
The funny thing is, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way at all. Like, Schick can come off a little nerdy. Like, he kind of can come off that way, and in like the best possible way. But that's
what makes him so good.
Well, and you feel like there would be such a difference between him and Nick Baugh. Like, okay, this Division I athlete, like, and then you've got kind of the AV club kid, and they get along and they're like best friends. Like, it's so great how
because Nick was stealing his homework.
It doesn't matter that like Nick is this former athlete and Schick is just this former TV guy and stuff like that. It's their friendship makes me so happy.
But those are the type of people too that exceed on television, like especially on play-by-play calls. Like, Nick is the perfect color commentator because he knows the game. But he also can just like fit something in, which is like this weird analogy that you would never think about until you hear him say it.
And honestly,
like a song line, like a bag floating through the wind or something, like, and he compares it to a play. It's just like, wait a second here.
I love.
How'd we get on Fritos?
And I love, honestly, my favorite version of Nick Baugh outside of the Schick and Nick show is when he's on Creighton games, because he goes full send on Homer mode, which is my favorite thing in the world. Because when he's on the television broadcast on FS1, he's so professional and he's so good at what he does, right? And you wouldn't be able to tell that he went to Creighton or anything like that. He's just so good at being a professional color commentator,
because he's on the Big East Network and calls a lot of Creighton games.
Yeah, right. And you would have no idea, like, if you didn't know that he went to Creighton. But are you saying that Nick Baugh wasn't a valuable basketball player for his Creighton team now, Robbie? No, I'm just saying, if you didn't follow Creighton back in the Missouri Valley days and you were just judging it based on listening to the call, you wouldn't pick up any like homerism or anything like that. But then you turn on a couple of the games that he does for the radio network as the home broadcaster, and it goes, you've still got the knowledge and the professionalism and all of that, but then he goes full send on Creighton Homer, and it is the most fun just listening to him call Creighton games. It's incredible.
Shane, let's go to line 1 and talk to B.
By the way, a lot of that stuff was probably my fault, because I would just play his drop laughs over and over and over again, and he would just laugh. And he would just, he would just go off the wall.
The Nick Baugh scream laugh is iconic.
So basically what Shane is saying is he built Nick Baugh to what he is today.
No.
Oh, that's not what you're saying?
No, I followed his lead.
All right, let's go to B. What's up, B? Good morning.
Hey, fellas, what's going on?
Everything's good in the hood over here. What about you?
I just listen to you guys talk about Schick and Nick, how good of a show it was, kind of made me feel old. Robbie started talking about how the show was recorded on reel to reel because it was so old. And, try to make it seem like that wasn't that long ago. That's why I got my first original radio sports name, Trick with People Brian. And then, hey, Shane, you got them old cut up. You still got that song that they had their last day of the show where they the drop song? When you put all the drops together and made a song, that's the one I'm looking for. I've been looking for that one.
Yeah, Shane.
I want to hear that.
Do you have that in your archives?
Probably.
You should find that, and let's just play it on our show.
And just play the Schick and Nick drops.
Yeah, I mean, we'll just take the Schick and Nick audience over to Coffee and Cream.
Yeah, they had a song. They put all their drops together into some song that was real creative. I was like, I've been looking to hear that ever since they went off the air.
I agree here. I agree here, Shane. We need to find that. We need to play it because then it would actually be archived online so people can go back and listen to it. And all that does is just poke Coffee and Cream listeners.
Hey, before I go, watching that NFL preseason last night, Travis Vokalek was looking real nice.
Yeah, he did. He was eating.
But the funny thing was when after Nick Gates hit that guy, the right guard was doing the gritty. He was looking all giddy. Instead, he goes off the field doing the gritty. I was like, oh my God, this is football.
This is what we love. This is what we love to watch. Hey, did you have on your bingo card B a game-winning field goal by the Commanders to stop the preseason streak for the Ravens?
No, I didn't know that they before the game they were really set on breaking that win streak in the preseason. I didn't really know that was important, except for to the gamblers. But man,
to degenerates like me who bet on preseason football.
If you bet on preseason football, get help. Just get help.
Yeah, I haven't even done that yet.
Hey, don't worry, I haven't either. So
I've had 21 fantasy football teams in 1 year, but I've never
21.
Can you say that number one more time, please?
21.
B. How do you even keep track?
Did you have to hire an assistant to keep up with that? Like, what happened?
Who was your nutritionist coach?
Hey! I was going with I was working with Steele. Kevin Steele was my defensive coordinator from Nebraska. You know, we were looking real good out there because I played with IDPs. You know, I didn't play that little stuff, so it was kind of hard.
Kinda. I struggle with 5.
Wait, so you were playing individual defensive players too?
Oh yes.
Oh my God!
On every team?
On all 21?
Well, no, on 10 of them.
Only 10. Only 10.
Just on 10. Got to make it fun, but you know I don't like how the weaker teams seem they feel like they're out of it if they don't have any real offensive players. You give them a little chance with defensive players, give them points for touchdowns.
Man,
hey, somebody get a punt return, kickoff return. That could change the game.
B, I got a question, man. Before we let you go, I got a question. So how did you avoid not drafting the same players and then not like cheering on a player that you are playing against because he's on like 7 of your other teams?
You get lucky. You find some sucker in the league and you can trade for a couple of good players.
So did you have like similar teams across the board then?
Yeah, that first year I had I think Adrian Peterson and Frank Gore's rookie year on a lot of teams.
Okay,
nice.
That was pretty good.
I don't know. I don't know how you manage that. You're an animal. That's what you are. You're a different breed.
He's built different.
Yes, he is. He's a Ford truck.
It helped for the next 10 years. I didn't have to sit up there and watch too much preseason games. I knew what we were playing.
All right, B, we appreciate the call this morning.
All right, no problem. Take it easy, brother.
Oh, man, appreciate that laugh. Because I thought I was crazy playing in 5 because I could hardly manage that.
I think I maxed out at like 4, and then I pretty quickly after that dropped to 2, and now I only do 1.
I'm telling you, man, I can't stand rooting for, like, say I have Justin Fields as my quarterback in 2 leagues, and then I'm facing off against him in another league. Because I'm like, wait a second, but that other league, I'm only up, let's just say 14 points, and Fields averages 17 in fantasy. So I have to hope that he gets like 13, which could still win me this week, but it guarantees me the win this week. Or if he goes off, then I win these 2 and lose this one. But this one's my money league, so I need this one. Like, oh man, it's
too much. It's too confusing.
Yep. But if I had 21 teams,
I would never.
I mean, B's a fantasy football card counter.
I would never.
Good night. All right. When we come back, we will get into a few things. One being the new facility over at Nebraska. That's next.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
All right, welcome back. A little bit in my feels after a note I got from Mr. Nielsen on DMs. I appreciate that. Okay.
You need a second? You all right?
Yeah, I'm here. We're good to go.
All right.
So, speaking of Twitter, yesterday, Nebraska football posted a video of the team walking through the new facility, which is absolutely incredible.
It's stunning.
I think it's about 165 million. Was that the cost to build the new facility? It was something around that price.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So we'll call it 165. If I'm right,
yeah.
Great. If I'm wrong, it's probably close. So I thought about, where that would rank among other facilities in college football.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked it up. And, there seems to be an article for everything.
In terms of cost?
And in terms of just like nicest facility.
Sure.
I have no clue what the cost would end up being because
and they're built in different years and stuff, so it's hard to compare exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I was looking it up on 24/7 Sports, I couldn't find anything about Nebraska in the top 25. And I'm like, okay, so this article can't be that fresh, right? And I was like, wait a second here. Tick, 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 tick. This is February 27th of 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, well, you knew a facility was coming, but maybe it's because it hasn't been done
Yeah,
yet.
it hadn't been opened. So I think, and to be fair, Nebraska had fallen a little behind with facilities. I mean, there were, and that's kind of the cyclical nature of these things. It's whoever's built the latest one kind of has the nicest one. And then as it gets older, other people update. And so Nebraska had kind of fallen to the back end of that cycle a little bit. So they needed this upgrade. It looks state of the art. It looks on the same level as those videos that you see from LSU and Texas and places like that. So it's a big deal for Nebraska because, it shows that the athletic department, the university, everybody is still committed to keeping up with national powers in college football, even though obviously the results haven't been there. But these are the things why, I always say that Nebraska really is a good job still because they are committed to keeping the infrastructure in place to build winning football program. Not everybody does that, not everybody.
And it's a huge recruit draw.
It really is because it doesn't eliminate you right now. All the top teams have really incredible facilities, but those teams that are kind of in the range where Nebraska's been playing lately, or maybe even teams that play better than Nebraska, Wisconsin struggled with facilities for a really long time because they just couldn't get the money up to build new ones.
Right. But I look at it as kind of like if you were going to visit a hotel, right? Say you were going to an all-inclusive resort. All of them will look different in the end, but some you could probably still say are nicer than others.
Sure.
Once you visit those 4 all-inclusives on your list. So that's kind of how I look at this with Nebraska. Like they have similar features to what LSU has, Texas has, South Carolina has, Alabama, Georgia. There's a lot of things in their new facility that they have, but what is something that they don't have? Does everybody have a walk-in car wash? Like when you get off the field and you just walk through the shower spraying from your right and left? Do they have nap pods? Do they have what about this makes this feel like this is nicer than that last one?
Sure.
And I think that's where all these college football renovation minds are competing.
Yeah.
Is, okay, what's that one thing that can make us different? What's that one thing that can get us to be remembered by a certain recruit? It may not be how good the food tastes because everybody has good food at the end of the day, but maybe it's this, it's
it's not just about the being different too. It's also about making you better. Like does everybody have the level of like recovery and nutrition services built into the facility the way Nebraska did? Like that was a huge emphasis on what they wanted to do. And so if you're a recruit coming in and they can show you like, hey, it is literally part of our building and infrastructure to make sure we get you feeling right, to make sure that you stay healthy and make sure everything's on point there. Like that can be a difference maker too, because you look at it and you say, okay, I'm able to maximize my abilities here in a way that maybe other teams haven't thought about, right? Like the recovery portion of it's such a huge deal because obviously the better you can recover, the better you can practice, the better you can train, the better you can play. And that's kind of, back in the day it was, okay, facilities and weight rooms and strength and conditioning and stuff like that. Well, everybody does that now. And then it was like nutrition and the training table and all that. And everybody does that now. So you have to keep finding what's the next step to maximize our players' abilities. And I think recovery is kind of the thing that people are on now because they see the value of being as close to 100% as possible when you start.
Right.
Makes you better all the time, even when you're not at 100% later on. So that I think for it, just from what I know about the facility, that to me is the differentiator from Nebraska.
So ultimately what I was getting at here is, and I just, kind of buying time here through conversation. It does say at the beginning of this article that massive renovations are in the coming years for Texas Tech, Florida State, Penn State, and Nebraska is listed. So they weren't on this list. But as I was looking through all of the, let's just say the top 10, like I thought South Carolina had one of the nicest facilities, and they're at 10.
Yeah.
And so when I got the walkthrough there, I'm like, okay, how are all these other teams placed? And now, of course, Georgia and Alabama, they'll find themselves in the top 5. Texas, of course, will find itself in the top 10. They also have a really nice facility there, hydrotherapy. They have a flight simulator. I'm like, okay, this is. Oh no, that was Auburn. I'm sorry. Auburn has the flight simulator, but Texas has like a really nice facility. And but everybody's been adding on by like millions, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's really gone all in on the big project. They did, but now they're just kind of adding on little features. But we're at a point now to where spending money, like big money, will really get you a lot of things, which is why Nebraska forked over 165. It's why Texas Tech is forking over $200 million for their new facility. So we're looking at this list, and I'm like, okay, the top 10, you incrementally see like $9 million added on to Ohio State, or $5 million added on to Georgia here. But when you see 165 coming from Nebraska, you'll see them in the top 10. You may see them in the top 5 of new facilities.
For sure.
And when you look at this list, when I tell you who are in the top 5, number 1 team is Oregon. That makes a lot of sense because of the Nike connection. Texas A&M is at 2. Texas A&M hasn't had like great football seasons lately, but they have the second best facility on this list,
and they've got more money than God,
and they can recruit like nobody's business because of it, right?
Money. Yeah.
Then you have Bama at 3. You have Clemson at 4. Laser tag, basketball court,
theirs is
mini
relatively
golf,
new,
bowling alley.
Also,
let's just say $135 million towards stadium upgrades for Clemson back in 2017, I think, was when they had the new football facility. And then Georgia is listed at number 5. Look, kick one out. You may kick out a big dog. You may kick out of Georgia or in Alabama because their renovations were made 5-6 years ago,
and yours
is brand spanking new.
Yeah.
So all this does is help Nebraska in the long run. Darn it, I wanted to get to that Knicks thing, and all of a sudden it just kind of went sideways because we're talking Illinois football as a part of the Big Ten whip at 7:45. So I guess we'll put that thing on hold. We'll just set it on hold for now. Maybe we'll get to it later on in the show. We'll do the Sports Six Pack at 8 o'clock. We'll get into some extra thoughts from the weekend. What we heard from Matt Rhule. I kind of wanted to talk about captains, but no captains. Not like Robin Williams, Shane, oh, captain, my captain. But
I was thinking
what I mean.
I was thinking Kurt Russell.
Oh, okay.
You're always thinking Kurt Russell, aren't you?
Yes, he is. It's all only on the brain. And then there was something Deshaun Singleton said, which is great to talk with DB because he's been on his watch list ever since the start of fall camp, I would say, right about the start of August.
Yeah, I think
we'll talk Michigan football at 8:45 with Aaron McMahon. News coming out about Jim Harbaugh's suspension. Mike Schaefer at 9 o'clock today. He's Nebraska football and recruiting for 24/7 Sports. And then, as I mentioned, Matt Schick will come your way at 9:45. But we may save this Knicks drama for tomorrow.
Okay.
Because I'll have you tomorrow morning.
Yep.
I may push it off to tomorrow.
It'll still be, it's still relevant.
Well, and
super weird.
It's just weird, right? And
super weird.
And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. You talked about skipping a job interview to listen to Bob or Bill Cosby, right? On Schick and Nick. This is, let's just say 10 times weirder.
It is pretty strange.
So we'll pause on that. We'll push it off toward tomorrow. We call that a tease. When we come back, Robert Rosenthal, publisher of IlliniBoard.com, at @ALionI on Twitter. They just officially named their quarterback.
They did.
And there's a lot of things that seem like guarantees in Illinois, too. We'll get into those next.
The The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Illini in Husker territory. Pressure comes. DeVito dumps. Got his man caught. First down. 35-30. Isaiah Williams down the left sideline. Might score. He will. Touchdown. Touchdown, Illinois. And Isaiah Williams scoops it up with a catch over the middle, sprints down the left sideline. Huskers have been prone to big plays, and the Illini get a big one there. Touchdown, Illinois.
Man, it's almost that time. Less than 10 days until Husker kickoff. But that is college football season start. So we are taking a look not only at who Nebraska will be facing off against this year, but just going around the Big Ten, doing our Big Ten whip. We do it every year, and we start things off by talking to Robert Rosenthal, publisher of IlliniBoard.com, at ALioni on Twitter. Robert, good morning. Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Hey, so yesterday, and I think this was fairly obvious to assume, but Luke Altmaier was officially named the starter. How much do you credit him on earning the position and not allowing the outside noise to creep in, which basically guaranteed him to be the starter from the jump?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. So there was a second transfer. Obviously, Altmaier was brought in, a 4-star, didn't win the job at Ole Miss. So, that's how it works these days. Those 4-star kids look for their other job or, where they're going to get their other starting spot. And he came to Illinois. But the second transfer, John Paddock from Ball State, who was Ball State's starter last year. He's actually an Illinois legacy. His uncle and his grandpa and his great-grandpa all played for Illinois, so he wanted to do that for his 5th season. So it was, I think, more of a competition than most people thought. Everyone talks about it just like any transfer QB. Hey, he's being brought in to be the starter. It's his job. But I think he really did have to earn it.
Robert, I'm curious, what are some of the things that you are looking for Altmaier to bring to the table that maybe Illinois hasn't had in years past with guys like DeVito?
So just to give you a little Illinois history, this is a stat I threw out there in the last few weeks. DeVito right now is kind of the 3rd string quarterback with the Giants. He's, started a couple of their preseason games. They're making that NFL decision of whether to keep 3 quarterbacks or 2. If DeVito does hang around with the Giants and makes the roster, he would be the first Illinois quarterback rostered in the NFL since Kurt Kittner, which was the early 2000s, like 2003, I think, was Kittner's final year with the Falcons, maybe 2004. So it's been 20 years since even a single quarterback is rostered. How many quarterback spots are there in the NFL? 70, 80, if depending on who carries 3. And there hasn't been a single Illinois quarterback to make that. So, Illinois fans have been waiting for a quarterback to come along and be that kind of player. It's just been so long since there's that guy. So I say it for every transfer quarterback. It's right there. He could become a legend in a few games in Champaign because the quarterback play just hasn't been good for the last 20 years. When they have had, well-known quarterbacks like Juice Williams in the late 2000s, he was more of a running quarterback and didn't have many NFL prospects. So it's right there for Altmaier to be a legend in Champaign.
Now, you mentioned quarterback play not being too strong, but defensively, you guys have looked very strong in recent years. But with all the young guys, with all the transfers and underclassmen filling major roles, in particular the secondary, do you think they can be as effective as they were last year?
As effective as last year is
high bar.
It is a high bar.
Yeah. Yes. Because, look, last night, Quan Martin had a pick in the the Commanders preseason game. Kendall Smith was the free safety. He had a pick in that same game. He's also with the Commanders. Sidney Brown's now with the Eagles. Devin Witherspoon's with the Seahawks as the number 5 overall pick. That was a secondary that Illinois fans haven't seen in forever and probably won't see again for 20 years. So it won't be that. The biggest issue right now, I think, is they had another kid who had 3 picks last year. When some guys opted out of Illinois' bowl game, he started the bowl game. He had a pick in the bowl game named Matt Bailey. He was the next guy at safety. Kind of step in and not lose much ground, but he's got a foot injury. He's still in a boot. Brett Bielema said yesterday he's out until at least the Penn State game in mid-September, if not later. And so that's even a bigger blow of not only you lose these 4 guys who are all in NFL camps right now, 3 of them draft picks. The next guy who was set to come in, he's out as well. So it's a big task for them. they threw everything at it they could. They 3 transfers, 2 JUCOs, 4 high school recruits. They moved 2 guys from offense to defense. They're trying everything they can to replace the secondary, but it's a wait and see in the first game here.
We're talking with Robert Rosenthal from IlliniBoard.com. How much is that front end of the defense going to help out the secondary? They returned 5 of their 6 kind of primary front end positions between the D-line and linebackers. How much can that offset some of the losses in the secondary?
I mean, just as the opposite of what I just talked about, I guess I'll say it needs to be the best defensive line in Illinois history. I mean, I don't think that's – 3, 4, maybe 5 of the guys have NFL prospects. Johnny Newton should be a first-round pick next year. Keith Randolph will be a pick. Seth Coleman will be an NFL player. They have a guy who was a freshman All-American, Gabe Ackus, who returns for his sophomore year. Like they just have, it for someone covering Illinois, you don't talk about things like this. That when I say best defensive line in team history, I mean that because there's not a defensive line in Illinois history that has 4 what seem to be surefire NFL guys. And so it should be the dominant thing of a defense. I think it's maybe easier for a secondary to show up as the dominant part of the defense than the line. Sometimes the linemen aren't getting unless they're sacks, they're not getting the praise that maybe the 25 interceptions the secondary had last year would get.
Sure.
But it should be a dominant type thing with several NFL guys, not just the interior guys in Randolph and Newton, but also the exterior guys in Ackus and Coleman.
Robert, I'm curious, kind of on a bigger picture scale here with Illinois. Historically, you mentioned Kirk Kittner. They followed up a lot of their best seasons in Illinois. 2001, they go to the Sugar Bowl. The next year, they're 5-7. 2007, they go to the Rose Bowl. The next year, they're 5-7. Illinois seemingly had a really hard time stringing together these consecutive years of quality play and quality football, even when most of the pieces seem to be intact to have a chance to do this. I guess what's the level of, I don't know if angst or anxiety is the word, but coming off of an 8-5 season where at times Illinois was ranked as high as 14 in one of the polls, I guess where's the level of consternation with the fan base and around Champaign in general that they don't fall into the same trap that they've had over the last 20 plus years?
I think if there are any Illinois fans listening to this, they just said, how did this guy step so deep into our psyche? Because that's the exact view toward this. That's the, say Toledo in the opener were to take a 10-0 lead. Every fan in that stand is like, it's happening again. It's happening again.
Until they win 45-10.
Right. Exactly. There is that you're exactly correct. Look, Illinois only had winning seasons in the 2000s. The only winning seasons for Illinois is 2001, 2007, 10, 11, and then this past season in 22. That's it. Everything else a losing season. Some bowl seasons, but lost the bowl and finished 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there have been 1 year bright spots followed by nothing. Now, the difference here is that the rest of the Illinois coaches over that span, Ron Turner won 2 games his first 2 years. Ron Zook won 1 game in the Big Ten, his first year. 1 conference game his first 2 years. Tim Beckman won 1 conference game his first 2 years. Lovie Smith won 2 conference games his first 2 years. And Brett Bielema has won 9 conference games his first 2 years. He won 4-5 and then 5-4 in the Big Ten. That's different, obviously, right? That speaks to more of this is what a rebuild looks like. This is not those 1 year, moments of existence where, everything looked right and you had a bunch of seniors and you had that good year and then the next year you got to start building it. So the hope is that this is what the rebuild is and not, those 1 year seasons like you had in 01 and 07.
Now, Robert, I'm going to get you out of here on this. We got about a minute left. It's kind of prediction season, right, for everybody out there. I mean, we've been hearing it a lot here in Nebraska, so I'm just going to fall into the bear trap too and ask you. The over-under set at 6.5. I've seen anything range from 10-2 all the way down to maybe those that drank a little bit of truth serum and understand the volatility that Illinois is presented with this year. Would you take the over or under the 6.5?
Well, because I'm not, because this is out of the area and I don't have a bunch of angry Illinois fans, I would probably go under. I would see something like a 6-6. You know, this is the year that Illinois always goes 5-7, as you mentioned earlier. So everybody's, you know, worried about that. I could see them on a step back year, maybe only in 6-6, and then right back up the next year because I think this staff has it figured out.
Well, I bet them over, so I'm in.
Robert, I know one Illinois fan listening, and Evan is not going to be happy.
It's deep in my psyche.
Neither will our guy Trent that calls into the show all the time, big Illinois guy. Robert, we appreciate the time this morning. Have a great week.
All right, thanks.
Robert Rosenthal, publisher of IlliniBoard.com. Let's do the Sports Six-Pack when we come back.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
All right, welcome back. Top of the hour here on Coffee and Cream. Robbie Lula, Andrew Rogers. DB will be joining us here shortly, so stick around for that. A lot of renovation going on outside. I got to tell you, Robbie, I'm happy I'm inside.
Oh, absolutely. It is terrible out there.
I opened the door to see if Boss Man Bill needed my phone for some extra photos, and I quickly closed it.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, I'm wearing long sleeves.
Yeah.
It's what I do whenever we come in and tight. Because I kind of said it yesterday, like, it gets a little chilly in here.
Yeah, with the air conditioning, it gets a little chilly.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to wear sleeves today. And then I walked outside and I'm like this as I'm going to my car, rolling up the sleeves. So
mine's always the glasses.
Yeah.
My glasses fog up the minute I step outside.
Yeah.
When it's like this,
dude,
it's the worst.
And I wear only sunglasses. So
Yeah.
that only happens to me when obviously I was driving around yesterday.
Yeah.
But for you, I totally understand what you're saying because Jacob Padilla had the same problem. I saw him say something on Twitter about that. So yeah, weather-wise, it isn't too fun over the next couple of days. It is nice to see, some of these high school teams be able to get out to practice early in the morning.
Yeah.
Although, as DB talked a little bit about yesterday, like it is obviously hard sometimes for some. Let's just say some schools, some people to either get to
just
practice in the early
logistically,
hours because you have to take the bus to school or whatever it is. So it's unfortunate, but it's the only way to do it. If you're going to practice outside, you have to practice in the wee hours of the morning. So it makes sense, but I'm sure that he's going to show up and be like, "Whoo, I'm happy to be back in the AC."
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel bad for the teams that aren't able to go in the mornings right now, but luckily West Side is, so they'll be ready to go. I imagine I'll find myself out at West Side on Friday night with the West Side prep opener.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide what game I'm going to go to because Saturday I have to be in Kansas City.
Okay.
For baseball, so I just don't know if I'm going to drive down later that night. Like if I go watch like a first half and then I just drive down there to drive down there.
I'm really curious what prep will look like coming off of their performance against Bellevue West, where most people feel like they outperformed expectations. Really curious to see if that was just, hey, they're really hyped up for the number one team in the state. It's their first game of the season, or if prep is actually going to end up being better than maybe we gave them credit for. Thursday, I think I'm going to go out to Papio Miller North, and then so I'll get, because Miller North is a lot of people's, I don't know if sleeper is the right word because they're ranked in the top 5, but kind of their breakout candidate this year, and Papio might be a little better than people think as well. So I'm excited to get out to hopefully a couple games this week.
Is it crazy to think too that, and maybe it's not prep, but maybe also Bell West isn't as good as people give them
I think
credit for? Like, is that crazy to say?
And that's part of why I want to see prep again when they play Westside this week, because if they play Westside to the same level that they played Bellevue West at, then maybe it's a prep thing. If Westside handles some business against prep, then maybe Bellevue West isn't maybe as dominant as we were thinking they could be. It'll be really interesting to see what prep looks like this week. It's because you could very easily have kind of a letdown game a little bit after going so hard against Bellevue West. So I'm really interested to see what they look like.
Well, I'm actually curious too, probably more curious to see if Westside is as far in front as people have given them credit for this offseason.
Yeah,
because
sure.
It was when we talked to Mike Sauter last Friday, it was West Side and Bell West against everybody else. Then DB chimed in and said, no, I actually think it's probably closer to like 4 or 5 teams up there, or maybe the top 7 teams. And then, it trickles off a little bit. So as I listened to 2 of the experts that have been around the high school game for a long period of time in this area, I'm like, okay. And not that I'm like, okay, I believe one and not the other. It's like, no, it's crazy that these 2 have been around the game for this long and have different opinions on what this season could actually look like. So the strength of Westside that's what I'm most interested in, coming off the state championship run, seeing how much they returned, and also seeing the challenges that are presented for that team
Sure,
this
yeah.
year. So just a lot. Like it's cool to be able to think about this because say Prep didn't have the best showing in is it week 0? Is it week?
Yeah,
it's
week zero. Week 0.
Say they didn't have the best showing in week 0, and then we probably aren't talking like we are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is and it's I don't want to over exaggerate because they did end up losing the game, but it was certainly a performance that I think was worthy of further thought, just because it didn't go the way most people thought it was going to. I think we have old DB is in the building now.
He is. He's here.
How are we doing?
We're doing good, man. How are you?
I think the bigger question is, how are you doing after standing outside today?
My ears were burning. So the hardest thing about my day is not the time. It's the multiple changes of clothes and like when to hop in and get cleaned up again. Cause I'm probably the only person that showered twice before 4:40. So,
did you shower before you came in too?
Yeah. So most of our staff, like they're released in staggered time so they can get cleaned up.
Yeah.
Right. Cause I mean, we're setting up the field at like 5.
Well, and everybody has a job
and then everybody's
right? Like they have legit jobs,
like to teach, right?
Right? Yeah, and we have 2 guys that are over at the middle school, so it's cool, man. Can't wait till Thursday when we get back to a normal day.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a beautiful time to be a young person, right? High school is fun, right? That's the time you'd go back to, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you said you'd go back to high school.
I don't know if I'd go back, but I do appreciate.
Like if you had elementary, high school, college, which one would you pick?
It's either high school or college.
I'm definitely taking high school.
I team high school.
Think it was. I did recognize at the time that it was the most freedom and the least amount of responsibility that I was ever going to have.
In high school?
Yeah.
See, that was college for me. Least amount of responsibility.
Well, but yeah, so for me, I felt like I had more responsibility in college, and because you have to worry about, you got to pay for stuff in terms of like school and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like high school, there's very little, like there's almost no responsibility, right? But once you can drive, you have like a pretty good amount of freedom. Sure. Whatever money you make is sure. For me at least, was just walking around, pocket money. So no, it's somewhere between like 16 and 22, probably.
I'd have been a different athlete though if I went back to high school.
Yeah,
that's what I know now.
That's what I want to go get.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would go back to high school definitely. Just because I cheated the system. Just couldn't lift weights. I was weak. It's just a lot.
Yeah.
And I was so busy worrying about being defiant that I wasn't getting better. Right. Which is probably, I mean, truth be told, the only reason I really actually coach is because I just think it's a critical time for young people. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right.
And you're dramatically more patient than I am.
So only with young people.
No, that's what I mean.
So like, I'm not as patient with adults.
Yeah, because there's a different expectation with adults.
And I probably should be, because they're probably more peers, right? Yeah. But I don't know. Like I went to school, my degree was originally in
education, right?
Yeah, and it was junior high. Like I'm K-8, mild to moderate special ed, mild to moderate behavior disorder. So like nobody wanted, it was so easy to get a job.
Yeah, because nobody wants to do that job.
Nobody
wants to do that.
And job. It's even worse now.
It's it's one of the hardest jobs you can do in education.
I hate to say this out loud, but like as an African-American male in education, especially special ed, like I feel like if I was negotiating my own contract, they would have to pay me top dollar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean they really would.
Because they're willing to make concessions the last couple of years after COVID, with everybody leaving the profession.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man. But then I look at 12-hour days too.
Oh yeah,
right?
I mean,
like
there's a reason nobody wants the job.
Dude, Jay's an admin, and she gets home. She'll roll in at 5:15, 5:30. If you're an AD,
yeah.
Oh, you can forget it. I was watching Bellevue West Athletic. I was watching Morrow Friday. It's just because I'm a huge fan anyway. Like I know what he means to that high school, and I bet you he hadn't been home unless he ran home in the daytime. He wouldn't have been. He would have been gone from probably 6:15 or 6:30 to 9:30.
9:30, 10, yeah, whenever he got out.
And it's not just football that he's going to, right? He's going to be at show choir, volleyball, whatever. So everything. Like the good ones that like doing what they're doing, they spend time.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny you say that too, because I was listening. I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday on Twitter, but Matt Damon was doing an interview with his mom. His mom's a teacher. And so he was getting asked this question about job security through acting. And is that like why he like really like strives to be the best or like grinds his way to the top so that he has job security? And he like stopped the question mid-sentence and he's like, you think I do this because of job security? He's like, my mom's a teacher. You think she takes a crappy salary because there's job security? No, you do it because you love to do it.
Yeah,
and
funny.
so it's just kind of like it's the passion behind it all. So like hearing your story about like kids and through coaching and Robbie, I mean, you're an example of a different lane, right?
Yeah.
You do things because it financially sets you up better.
And I hate being around kids.
To live the way you want to.
I can't believe I like somebody so much that has such a disdain for young people.
No,
it doesn't even really fit.
Hold on. It's not a disdain for young people. It's a disdain for being around young people. Like, I wish them well. I don't want anything bad to happen to them. I love that there's people.
Good.
I love that there's people like you that are
I
out
don't want you
there.
to get hit by a bus, but I would stand next to you.
I just don't want to be in your shoes.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I get it. There's sometimes I like if I could go back to being a double income, no kids. I mean, there's some things I envy.
There's a lot of benefit to it,
but
right?
I don't want to. I don't want to.
You don't want
have
to
to give my kids back.
You don't want to give up what you've got now, which I totally understand.
So I remember when I was in school, like I never wanted to be married. I just wanted to adopt.
Yeah.
Like I wanted kids without
the marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And I just want the marriage without the kids.
I can't. So you want them both?
I do.
Yeah. He's like, man, what are these yahoos talking
I'm
about?
looking left, and I'm like, Robbie's on my left shoulder, DB's on the right, and I feel like a cartoon.
I was saying, you're just right in the middle. Best of both worlds.
So I was going to ask you guys because I missed a good chunk of the first hour, and so I got a couple of interesting DMs.
Okay.
And one came late last night. One of my guys, Preston, he thought Sam was uttering nonsense. Like
McEwen?
Oh yeah. He's like, there's no way you were agreeing with this guy, right? I mean, the geniusness of Whipple, the crediting of Applewhite, like clearly he's not listening to Coach Barthel about, 4 and 5 yards. He's talking about guys. And so I started thinking, and I was like, okay, I'm trying to figure out how people listen, because that's a big part of our job, right? Because if you get distracted by what one or two people say, like sometimes you feel like that's the majority, because it's fresh. And then in the same vein, I had one of my guys in Minnesota where he's like, hey, I'm an eternal optimist, right? I usually think this, and this, and he's as in tune to what's going on as anyone. He's a huge Husker fan. He's the one that told me like 6 months ago that folks were investigating Minnesota, right? Like he like stays in tune, and he's like, I'm usually an optimist. He says, but I'm just not vibing with this year. I just don't think it's gonna go well. And he didn't make a prediction. Yeah, he did actually. I think he didn't think that they were going to get to a bowl game. And he said, I don't really have a good reason why. He just keeps his ear to the ground. So it made me both
that
those
queasy feeling that I felt last week.
Right, but both those guys, the catalyst for my thought process is how people process information. Because when I was listening to Sam, I didn't get the sense. I heard early on in games, when you can't wear guys down, it would be nice if you had some guys that could make people miss.
Yeah.
Turn it. That's kind of what I heard. I didn't so much get into the Whipple thing, except for he did get a guy drafted. And he did get us to think that we couldn't win a game without a certain quarterback playing. So the offense, like the concepts, he was a bright guy. Didn't love to run the football. Didn't have a ton of creativity running the football. But I didn't cling to that part of the discussion. So I was just thinking, it's hard when we process information, because if I'm listening to Coach Rhule and this staff, now I'll go back to Jim's example. Do you hear or do you process negativity
from the staff?
Yeah. Do you get that sense? Because Drew down last week was like, man, I don't know if this is like this nervous anxiety or we're just too close to the season, but
I don't know if
I'm kind of not
negative, like
something changed your vantage point though.
I think it was body language. So maybe if I read body language a certain way, could that be like I process?
Are you processing a mood when you're listening to the staff?
Okay, yes, I do. I do that.
Okay, so there are times I come in. What is it? Like, what's the vibe?
There are times I come in when I can just tell that Coach Rhule is.
He was pissy the other day.
Not just with Grant. What was the day? It was who transferred? Farmer? When Farmer was going to transfer.
So a couple weeks ago, and he was kind of like disappointed.
He came in and was just like, yeah, Miles just isn't there yet. And I'm like, this dude's leaving by Friday. Like, I can just.
He was disappointed.
I can hear the disappointment in his voice. It's the same thing with like body language after that first scrimmage. He was like, yeah, we weren't perfect. Like, we weren't doing this right, that right.
Because now all of a sudden we don't think they'll have good special teams. I'm just wondering, like, and I kind of know where that one comes from, right? You can't go 0 in a scrimmage or whatever, but it's still just one day. And 10 days ago, like, we were in love.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because
it's fun. Like, your brow is all sorts of furrowed. Like,
you're giving me a lot to think about here because I'm trying to put my finger on how I'm processing the things I hear out of them. And I don't think it's been a negative attitude. I think there's been times where he's been frustrated. I think there's been times where he's been disappointed, but I've never got the sense that he thinks they can't win this year. And whatever that means, right? 6 or 7 games. Like, I think he probably thinks that's definitely on the
Are you a 5'7" guy?
No, I'm a 7'5" guy.
7'5".
Yeah.
You're 6'6".
I was 6'6" from the beginning.
I think I'm 5'7".
And listen, anything in that range would not surprise me. 5 wins, 7 wins, nothing in that range surprises me at all.
Like, I'll firm it up on Monday.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I mean, it'll be like
Game week.
prediction week,
Right,
and we'll like be full.
Although this week seems like prediction week, does it not? Everybody's coming out with their
It is.
take. Yeah.
It is. I was surprised to hear our Illinois guys take the under on
That's
6.5.
It's so here's the Illinois thing. It is because
by the way, who did that research for you?
My buddy Evan.
Okay.
Evan Stone.
That was unbelievable.
That's who. So
I'm like,
that's who I got.
Is Ravi in the cut?
Great.
Is Ravi in the cut? Is he like laying in the weeds, turning into a radio nerd like the rest of us?
So I low key really like watching Illinois.
Yeah.
But I talk to my buddy Evan about Illinois all the time. That's where I found Robert. He is their friends out there in Champaign. He lives in Champaign.
Dude, are you just letting him? He's finding our guest now.
Letting him go.
Listen, well, I told him after the last
Mocha.
Well, I came in and I go, "What are we talking with Illinois? Luke Altmaier?"
Oh, so yesterday, like when you were, we had no idea where you were. I think you were with Cam. So Shane comes over and he's like, "Hey, we did the opponent previews." And he goes, "Do you want to start the whip just to get people acclimated?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "Let's take Nebraska's first 2 Big Ten opponents after the non-con." That's how we got to Michigan and Illinois.
I'm like, I said Michigan makes sense because of the Harbaugh.
Yeah. Well, there's game 2, and I actually think it's a swing game.
Yeah.
Because hear my heart, right? Do you hear my voice? Like the
Illinois
kids were
or Michigan?
Illinois.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm conceding Michigan, and I hate to. Like, it makes my skin crawl, but I'm not naive either, right? It makes sense, right? But I do think Illinois is a swing game.
I agree.
I don't care where they play it.
Yeah.
I think I'm like,
well, especially now that Robert gave us the under, everything's a swing game for them.
That's a internalized like trauma response though from him. Is he's watched them fall on their face so many times after successful seasons. I don't think he's got it in his DNA to convince himself that they'll go over. I think that's what that is more than anything, because like you look at their defensive front.
So he's logged on to the Homer network, though. You'd think he'd be all in.
I think he is all in on Bielema because he said that at the end. He's like, I think they'll bounce back after this year, but I think there is just so much. If I've seen this too many times, I can't convince myself it's going to be different. And so many times, you're only talking about like 3 or 4 times over the last 25 years because that's how often they've been good over the last 25 years. So it's really challenging. But no, I'm unusually plugged into Illinois because of who some of my friends are.
So if he's truly taking the under,
just barely though, he's at 6-6, so just barely.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah.
But if you look at their schedule and you consider that one a swing on whatever it is, October 6th or whatever, that game could be the difference. I think that game's October 6th, right?
Yeah, it's October 6th.
Yep.
That game could be the difference between a 5-7, 6-6 guy.
Yeah,
because I think most people are conceding that game because it's on the road and it's Illinois and they've gotten some preseason hype. Because I'm one of those guys that kind of likes Illinois.
I am too. I love Bielema. I think Bielema's a great coach.
But I like Illinois for very specific reasons. I like him because I love their D line.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're missing their brainchild. I mean, he's over in West Lafayette.
Yeah, but then they took Wisconsin's brainchild, and he's an analyst now.
Right.
So I think that helps honestly a ton.
Yeah, he broke us off a call the other day. That was kind of scary, just because of that pre-existing relationship. And I was like, yeah, I took a recruiting trip to LSU. No, but anyway, I don't even want to get distracted. Because I did visit them coming out of high school.
Listen, I've been to Champaign. I don't mind it,
dude.
It's probably better than it was when you went.
Okay, because the state
when he got recruited.
Yeah. Because you said you took a visit there, right?
Dude, I think my recruiting host is like a high school coach somewhere.
Really?
Yeah, it's Camino Bell.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So, but anyway, like if Illinois is kind of like, but the national media is like, ooh, we're kind of high trending up. Those are the games. Like if Nebraska can swing, like I don't get. To land the plane, I don't get how you have strong feelings one way or the other based on what you originally thought about this football team. Because we don't know anything.
On Nebraska, you mean?
Yeah, so how are we listening to the information? Like, how are we processing, arriving at these clues? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so
like if you thought they were going to be 7-5,
yeah,
you should still think that, right?
Yeah, it couldn't have been a Betts thing.
No.
Right?
No.
And if you thought they were going to be 6-6, it's not like, oh man, that was, dude, without Miles Farmer, the second leading tackler. Yeah, I'm gonna take him down a game.
So I know you hate doing this, but part of it is okay. So I look at the schedule.
I love when he disarms me by
telling
me what I don't like.
Well,
so it's I'm gonna Jedi mind trick this dude because I told him he doesn't like it. He's gonna be like, no, Robbie, I'm all in. Robbie, I'm all in.
We've done this before where you go through the schedule and you're like, hey, we don't know who Nebraska is yet. We don't know much about them. We don't know a lot about these other teams.
But I would humor you and pick games, right, without knowing.
So, but as I look at Nebraska's schedule, I don't look at it as horribly daunting, right? Like it's a manageable schedule.
100%.
So I look at them, and the way I process the information is, you're right. We haven't seen and we don't know a bunch about this team. But what I look at, I say, okay, Nebraska shouldn't be beating themselves. The way shouldn't be beating themselves the way they have in past years. We've got adults running the room who aren't got onside kicking against Northwestern up however many points. We hope, right?
It's tough crowd, man.
It goes to my core belief that I don't think it's that hard to win 6 games. Like that's what it is. That's how I process the information. If you're a functional football program, it's not that hard.
Just roll out of the rack and get 6, huh?
If you're an adult, know how to run a football program.
Remember when we thought it was like that with 8 or 9 with Bo? Well, man, you just get out of bed.
Some people did.
Just got to get there.
Some people.
Wow. Right. Well, we didn't do the 6-pack, so we'll have to do that later on in the show. We'll take a break.
The show will be back in 5 minutes. show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes. The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
All right, welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the seat. DB, Robbie taking off, going to his regular job.
He's a good dude, man. He's kind of funny. He's a little terse, but I like him.
He's a good dude. He's kind of funny. He's a little terse, but I like him.
But that's what I need because,
DB line
man,
right
listen, because sometimes I think I'm too, and if anybody's had conflict with me, they're like, yeah, right. But for the most part, I'm a go along to get along kind of guy. So sometimes I need somebody that's a little tough to like, or is not afraid to tell somebody like STFU or something like that, and not have it be me, because I don't want people thinking ill. So sometimes I just chill. Like I need a mean guy every now and again. And he's very
that's your man.
He's very capable of being that guy. But at the end of the day, right? As I try to surround myself, you guys, with people that are like, cool like that. But he's versatile. Kid hater, but good dude.
Yeah, can't stand by that.
Man,
can't stand by that one bit.
Shane, am I on camera? Because I'd kind of like to make Sasha mad because
you're not.
You're not on camera.
Yeah, I want her to text me, so she's got to be like, I'm gonna arm wrestle with Sasha today.
Nothing wrong with that,
man.
Do you think you'd win?
Depends on if she's mad. Like if she's in a bad mood, because sometimes she's like got a super potty mouth. I didn't really realize that.
What'd she throw at you?
She's just not afraid to go there. So I'm like, dang, Sasha, I forgot how
Capital H-E-Y. Hey.
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna say it like she is.
Shane, so should I get on? Hey, my guy said something yesterday to Drew Down.
What did he say? You can do whatever you like?
No, my man Thomas.
You can do whatever you like.
So this might be a coaching point. I'm always trying to get tips. This is so embarrassing, but I love you guys because sometimes I just need to get better at what I'm doing. He goes, and his delivery is different. So I don't know if he's being sarcastic, but he goes,
is this TK?
Nope, this is my man Thomas. Okay. He says, are you discouraged from mentioning that you were on Twitter or YouTube in terms of viewing options? Like, how would you take that? But he just looks out, right? Like he's the guy that says, hey, turn the camera. Like he's a good dude. I've known him forever, right? So I was like,
knowing that you really do hate it, like I'd probably take
but so should we be doing that more? Like when we tell all the people how they can access us, and like, are we forgetting, or do you think he's really concerned that we should be saying that more? Now, keep in mind, he's the same guy that's like, hey,
maybe he's just looking out for the audience.
I found you guys on YouTube. Right. It's a lot more enjoyable than Twitter.
Who am I missing?
And so maybe a combination of the two.
So maybe we need to say that more.
So every time we come back, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, the Hurrdat Sports YouTube page, things of that nature.
Right. So do you know
like I say that a decent amount, but maybe I don't. Maybe I think I say it more than I actually do.
See, I don't know.
See, now I'm taking like inventory, right?
And I totally copped to a misdemeanor too, because I was like,
I
said, no, not at all. I probably just forgot. Like I ate it, right? Because I didn't know.
I mean, I'd have to. And I won't listen back to be like, I said it 6 times this day. I said it 1 time that day.
But apparently, like, we get a ton of downloads. So I think we should probably.
So we're live on Twitter, live on YouTube, the Hurrdat Sports YouTube
Thomas,
page.
we good?
And you should watch on YouTube because it is enjoyable, especially when we start to laugh.
Not really.
Yeah,
man.
Because when you wheeze, that's funny. You're like Wheezy from Toy Story when he's on the top shelf and he's coming up.
I have asthma, man. I feel some type of way.
Do you really?
Yes.
Oh, man, that's even better.
It's exercise induced. Ding Dong was out at practice yesterday. And
is that Micah or Caleb?
Caleb.
Okay.
And
sometimes I don't know who Ding Dong is. I know who Dong Ding is.
I usually call him Knucklehead, but he's like, man, I feel like I haven't seen you in a while. He's like, do you want to go get one in? And I said, what do you want to do? Go post him back? And he's like, yeah, I'll stay after. Let's do go post him back. So we're jogging and just talking. And he's like 4 yards ahead of me. I was like, hey, man, slow down. And we went to the other goalpost, and I'm kind of tired. And he goes, hey, man, what do you spend so much time, at the gym for? And I was like, man, that's the first time I ran 200 yards, and I don't know when. Like, I'm a speed walker this morning. He goes, hey, coach, I know you got to get back to work. Let me know if you want to get one in this afternoon. So I'm kind of mad at him now, right? But I did think it was cool that he acknowledged that he hadn't, like, I don't get to see him a ton, right? Because if we're not eating family dinner, man, it's a wrap. This is it's a crazy
lifestyle.
Time. Yeah. I gotta have my buddy take Micah to practice tomorrow because of this heat. They moved his practice from 5 to 6:30. Who practices 5 to 6:30?
In AM, hopefully.
No, man. Dinner time. That's all right. We're still at school. We got a pep rally.
5 to 6:30 though? And that heat tomorrow?
It's all good. They're indoors. He booked an indoor facility.
Yeah.
We're in a classroom last night. This dude is not trying to take any days off. Do you know what I ate for dinner last night? Reheated taco meat in a bowl with some grated cheese with a fork. Listen,
a dinner of champs during football season.
It was like a cereal bowl times 2.
Yeah, that's you because you shop like a king.
It was it was good though.
But that's you shopping on food stamps.
I dumped like this pico on top. I ate it like I felt like kind of like.
You felt like a taco, huh?
Man, I was about to say a runaway slave, but not everybody gets that. So put it this way, I was hungry. We better get to Michigan last so he could be mad at me for saying that.
Who was it in Georgia that who's now in Philly that said like eat off the floor?
Smith,
like
Smith.
Who was it like started?
Nolan, is it Nolan Smith?
Yes. What was on his shirt? It was like eat like you eat off the floor.
Yeah.
It's something like that. It's like you're starving.
You see the plays he was making in preseason?
Yeah.
He's a monster.
That
I can't believe people question. I get it. People question his motor or like kind of what he was going to do. But between him, Dean, Jalen Carter, those dudes are all going to play.
I like to eat off the floor. That's what it is. And he's like, have you ever eaten off the floor?
Man.
And you weren't hungry enough.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
That's such a great analogy.
Listen, I obviously argue with the matriarch in our household quite a bit. And a lot of times it's over.
Off the floor more?
So listen, if this girl's hungry, she'll eat. Well, stop letting Zoe tell you what we're having for dinner.
Chicken nuggets and mac and cheese.
Man, listen, if she's picky, she ain't hungry. We'll figure it out later.
All right, let's go to the Warhorse Casino phone line here, Shane, and talk to Michigan Lance. Lance, good morning.
Hey, good morning. You got the triple threat going this morning?
Andrew kicked Ravi out. He had reached his limit.
Hey, don't let him put words in my mouth.
Hey, my man John said send him the YouTube link. We must suck at this.
No. I think Adam DM'd me too today on Twitter and
we weren't getting it.
He said he had trouble finding the YouTube link.
Shane, talk to the boss with all the tattoos and get her going.
He said
man.
He has us on Twitter but doesn't see the live feed on YouTube.
Oh,
right, so
yeah,
we'll
I got no problem, guys. I got right in.
Yeah, whatever. I'm sad to hear that. What's up?
Man, that guy must be YouTube challenge, man. It popped right up when I went to YouTube. Like, I get 2. I get Hurrdat and I get Hail Varsity. Both of them popped up.
Well,
no problem.
That's nice.
What's up? Technology, man. That's the life. Hey, no, I wanted to get on Rivey a little bit, see how his boy Aaron, but it's okay. But
his boy Aaron is in Rogers.
Yeah. But man, Andrew, hey man, I need some food help like you helped out Nebraska. Thanks to DB. Jeez.
Relax.
Look how this has come full circle.
Lance, no. What you need to do now is just realize that had very little issue on people's lives, and you are still talking about it. Like this is the time we move on, Lance.
Get him.
I'm just saying, DB cashed the check DB made a check I had to cash.
Yeah, I said,
I might need some help.
Enjoy that government cheese and butter. It doesn't melt. It doesn't melt real well, but it has
all your money away to your kid for interceptions.
Yeah, he is.
Well,
that's why you're not eating.
Damon was right. I thought Damon was playing. Like I didn't know that he was actually talking about how good my son. He
could be very good. He's I don't tell you that. I would tell Langston that.
right. And that's fine. That's fine. I'm hard too, but no, man. So hey, it was good. He had a breakup. I owe him $50. It's a varsity game. I'm like, all right, man, go ahead. So I'm gonna be busy like you, DB. I coach middle school. Games are on Tuesday. He plays JV, which is on Thursday. And then Friday night, he suits up, man. So I'm going to be all over the place like you, man.
Yeah, just reintroduce yourself to your daughters.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah, and I still got them up in here. So.
I got her fundraiser deal, too. So tell Cadence we're good to go.
Oh, okay. Hey, appreciate that. You didn't have to do that, but thank you anyway. That. Hey, man, that fundraising deal is a rig.
I already know.
Lance, appreciate the call, man. All right, we're talking Michigan football up next.
The show will be back in 4 minutes. The show will be back in 3 minutes.
It's got to come from them, right? I mean, it's got to, from any individual. I'm not trying. I've tried to make guys love football, have enthusiasm.
The show will be back in 2 minutes. The show will be back in 1 minute. The show will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
It's got to come from them, right? I mean, it's got to, from any individual. I mean, I've tried, and I've tried to, make guys love football, have enthusiasm, attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind, make them love football, everything in my power. And I've come to the realization that it's got to come from the individual, no matter how hard you try.
Welcome back, Coffee and Cream. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill in progress. Renovation.
Did you see the sign?
Here. I saw it from a photo, but I haven't seen it yet in person.
Yeah.
They're putting it up, but I don't really want to walk outside. It's miserable outside.
It's thick out there.
I'm like, if I'm going outside, I'm going to my car and I am driving away. So right now I am just staying inside so I can finish the show because I think that's what everybody wants from me at the end here. But yeah, no, we are, I'm going to tell your boy Thomas here, live on Twitter, live on YouTube, the Hurrdat Sports YouTube page. We're on ESPN 590 here in town, starting at 9 o'clock, KFOR in Lincoln, so you can catch us there as well. We continue the Big Ten Whip with Aaron McMahon, Michigan football beat writer for M Live, at Aaron McMahon on Twitter. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Aaron, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Now, Aaron, news coming out yesterday. Of course, the thing on everybody's mind outside of the literal football season in Michigan is what's going on with Jim Harbaugh. What games is he coaching? What games is he not? Is he getting suspended at all? Is he not? Well, Michigan releases a statement saying we'll do the suspension for the NCAA, maybe to get in their good graces. And you know what? We'll just hand them 3 games, which if you don't know anything about Michigan's college football schedule, you're like, 3 games, okay, like he violated something, he got suspended. But then if you look at the 3 games he's suspended for, it's like, is he really suspended for 3 games, or is he just going to watch from the sidelines as they take on their non-conference opponents? Everything that you know, right, Aaron? Would you say this is the end of it, or do you believe there's more to come and we just don't know the exact timeline on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's clear there's more to come here. I think this was kind of a preemptive strike from Michigan to try and get the, to try and get the suspension at least partially over with. Because you got to remember, a few weeks ago, Michigan submitted this negotiated resolution to the NCAA to try to get to 4 games. Because I think the assumption is it's going to be more than that if it was up to the NCAA. So the fact that negotiated resolution was denied doesn't mean the NCAA is probably eyeing 6 or potentially more games. So I think this is Michigan's way of saying, all right, if you're going to give us 6, then we'll try and take 3 out now. And then I think the assumption is they'll probably, leave 3 or 4 net for next season, again, during the non-conference schedule.
Aaron, listen, I always ask people, my thing is the juice worth the squeeze? And I get it, right? I don't think the NCAA was really handled this situation well. They're the ones that could release the statement. Michigan can't. But I'm in Indy, right? I'm talking to Coach Harbaugh. I get the vibe before he takes the podium. There is this certain level of confidence that he exudes, as if it's not a rub your face in it, but he is his own guy. So as you're watching a team that is built for the long haul, that is extremely good, coming off back-to-back wins against a rival and representing the conference, is the juice worth the squeeze from a distraction standpoint? Because at the end of the day, the reward.
Yeah, if you're Jim Harbaugh, yes. I do think for Michigan, the school and the institution, I do think that they would prefer not to be in this situation. They obviously don't want to face penalties, and they don't want to face all this NCAA scrutiny that comes to the attention. But I got to think, if Jim Harbaugh and Michigan were in a different situation, whereas, they weren't coming off back-to-back Big Ten titles and playoff appearances, I got to wonder what this would look like just from an optics standpoint. Not only this, but Michigan's had their share of off-the-field headlines this season for other reasons too. So it certainly hasn't been a sparkling last, 12 months for this program. They've had a lot of issues, yet they continue to win. And I think that's really what's kind of keeping the train on the tracks, so to speak. Everyone wants to talk about culture inside a football program and everything else. And I think a lot of that stems from whether you win or lose on the field. And Michigan's done a lot of that the last 2 years.
So I remember doing the broadcast for the network in Ann Arbor against Nebraska, and got a chance to talk with Ward Manuel, and just listening to him over the last couple of years since taking the job. He seems to be the antithesis of drama, extracurricular. He carries himself with this presence, like there's a certain way to do things. When you look at the relationship between an athletic director and their head coach, can you have common vision without necessarily having the same shared language?
Yeah, I do think so. And I think in some regard, if you're an athletic director, you do have to put up with some of the stuff that maybe some of your high-profile coaches get away with.
It doesn't seem too Juwan Howard-ish either, right? So you're probably right.
Exactly, right? And Jim isn't the only one that's kind of created headlines for negative reasons at Michigan. So I think in some regards, Ward's had to put up with some of the stuff. Obviously they don't have, shared beliefs in some cases. And yeah, you're right. Ward's kind of more of a behind-the-scenes, hands-off type of athletic director who kind of works, behind closed doors. And Jim likes to be in the limelight. He said as much when he first got to Michigan. He likes driving headlines. He likes driving attention. Now, obviously, you want to do that for positive reasons and not negative ones. But nonetheless, I mean, it all goes back to whether you win on the field, and they've certainly been able to do that the last 2 years.
So as I'm sitting here thinking, Aaron, just more about this suspension, I want to think maybe from the NCAA perspective. Do you think they're thinking right now we can't let other programs think this is okay, so we need to make an example out of Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah, there might be some of that. Michigan certainly isn't the first. Wouldn't be the first school to stub their nose at the NCAA. Other schools have done it, to some success and some degree of challenge as well. I think where Jim really messed up here is, the allegations that he lied or misled NC investigators. Michigan as a whole, as a program, they're facing a bunch of level 2 violations, which aren't the most serious. They're not like, there are a couple of recruiting violations, and they watched some workouts through Zoom during the COVID period. So not huge deals. And if Michigan and Jim Harbaugh had just come clean from the get-go, they probably would have gotten a slap on the wrist and maybe some scholarship reductions. But the fact the NCAA feels like Jim Harbaugh lied to them, I think is, it goes to the old adage, right? The cover up sometimes is worse than the crime. And I think that's where the NCAA is really, peeved at Harbaugh. It hasn't helped that this narrative has come out that this is over his cheeseburger, Jim Harbaugh buying a recruited cheeseburger. And while that may have been part of it, there's obviously more to the story. And I think that's what the NCAA was trying to get across in their statement.
Aaron, the crazy thing is on the field, this team could be lights
Really
out.
good.
If you get production outside the numbers and you get some quarterback progress. I got a couple buddies, a few former players that are very familiar with this football team. They tell me that this top 6 along the defensive line has a chance to be the best, maybe in school history with their depth, and certainly the best in the Big Ten and maybe the country. Are we missing the narrative? Is there a blessing in disguise that there's distractions with the NCAA, but on the field, this team can be extremely legit?
Yeah, I think that's valid. And I have to think behind the scenes, Jim Harbaugh is trying to motivate his team to believe that way, to avoid the distractions and use it to channel it into energy to win football games and everything else. Jim has said that he believes this is his most talented and deep Michigan football team he's gotten Ann Arbor, which is saying quite a bit because he had some real good teams in the first couple of years. So, and then obviously the last 2 years, as we all know. So they're all stacked on both sides of the ball. You mentioned the defensive line. They can be very good. They got a potential first-round pick in Chris Jenkins at tackle. And, we're not even talking about the offensive line and how they've done. The running backs are back. The quarterback's back. They've got a lot of weapons on this team, and I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't be able to run through the Big Ten again this fall.
What's it like covering a team with a win total of 10.5?
Well, I will say this: for whatever their win total is, the fan base here in Ann Arbor cares a whole lot. It could be 7.5, it could be 8.5, it could be 11.5, and folks will still pack the big house. They will still show up in droves. Michigan will remain one of the most watched college football teams in the country. It comes with the territory. They have a huge alumni base, a lot of dedicated football fans, and you've got a head coach, as you guys have known, who's well known and likes to generate interest.
Aaron, how did Harbaugh seemingly be distracted in the offseason with a couple of job offers? You come back late, you like a thief in the night, you kick Don Brown out, you get rid of Gaddis, and he was supposed to be one man's trash is another man's treasure, and you haven't skipped a beat. You're better than you were 2 years ago. Testament to Harbaugh. Yeah. How did it happen seemingly with the blink of an eye?
Just that. I think Jim realized that what he knows best and what he does best is what they should have done from the get-go, right? They brought in Gaddis, as you mentioned, and they tried to go to this kind of open-ended offense, kind of a spread-style scheme, and it just didn't work. Just from a schematic standpoint, player personnel, they couldn't recruit to maybe the skill guys that Ohio State could get. So when everyone's zigging, Jim Harbaugh essentially zagged. He went back to his roots and the ground and pound style of football, running the ball, winning in the trenches, and et cetera. And then I think that's been their kind of change the last couple of years. And you mentioned Don Brown, him firing his defensive coordinator, and he brought in a smart guy from the NFL, Mike McDonald. He's been in the Ravens organization. He kind of deployed this versatile defense that wasn't just kind of one-dimensional, and they're able to slow Ohio State down, and that was the difference in, I think, flipping their Big Ten ritual.
I got a quick one here for you, Aaron. If you guys have a Heisman winner on this team, is it Blake Corum or J.J. McCarthy?
I think J.J. McCarthy, and I
agree.
I think the offense is still going to run the football, but they're going to have to split carries with Corum and Edwards this year. So I just don't think Corum's numbers are going to be there like they were last year.
Completely agree.
Aaron McMahon, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the week.
Fantastic stuff, Aaron.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
He's the Michigan football beat writer for M Live. When we come back, Mike Schaefer, we talk our Nebraska guy next.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
All right, welcome back. Let's tell you about some of our great sponsors here on the show. We talk about the Warhorse Casino phone line a lot, which you can call into 888-638-4876. Warhorse is the only casino in Nebraska where sports bets can be placed, and they have to be placed in person. Whether it's at a kiosk or whether it's with one of the sportsbook tellers, they can take your wagers and you can place a bet on your favorite team, your favorite game, except if it's Nebraska home games. That is the deed. The Warhorse Casino app can, you can view live odds and build your bets anywhere, and then scan the QR code at the casino to place your wager. Straight bets, parlays, props, and live in-game bets are all accepted. Visit warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook or get the Warhorse Casino app for details and the full list of house rules. We are talking to Mike Schaefer coming up in a few moments, just waiting on him to get joined up.
Yeah, where is Mike J? We need Mike J.
DB, it says you're in studio twice on my screen. How about that?
Listen. So, and you know this about me because you work like really close to me. If there's 50 or 55, 60% of what I do, somebody has to tell me. The other 40 I got, but like this whole technology thing is way above my pay grade. I don't want. So I'm totally taking one for the team. I don't want to be on camera. I don't like this whole TV thing. Like I fought this in my other business, but if this is the way of the future, and
Let's go. Let's ride.
And you have a
Broncos country, right?
And you have a mean boss that has a lot of tattoos. You probably just try to go along to get along. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. I'm just trying. My buddy's mad at me. He said I bust rolled him for scheduling a 5 to 6:30 practice. I'm just saying it was a little impromptu.
Nothing wrong with that,
A
right?
little impromptu, JL.
You just told it to 3,000 people. It's cool.
Well, you know, I have to kind of treat him well because he's my insurance guy. But man, 5 is tough on your boy.
You would have laughed too over the weekend when I was doing the prospect scrimmage and we went to Elkhorn's Legion facility. You talk about like technology and finding your way through. My head coach goes up to the top and trying to turn on music and can't figure it out. And he comes back down. He's like, I couldn't do it. And I'm like, would you want me to go look at it? Because like this is kind of like what I do, right?
Yeah.
I at least know what equipment
Yeah,
looks
you
like.
get our TVs turned on, which by the way
aren't turned on today.
Do I blame Ravi or is this because of construction?
It's probably a me thing.
Is it?
Yeah. So
okay. I'd like to blame Ravi for something.
Ravi can take the blame for sure.
Okay.
So
a lot of people like that guy. I think we should like knock some of the shine off.
So I go up to the press box and I turn the TVs on. I plug in my phone. It says, "Would you like to use this as headphones?" I hit accept and I hit play, and there it goes over the speakers. He's like, "All right, man, nice work." I'm like, "I didn't do much."
Mike is here.
You know who I need you to talk
thank
to?
you.
I need you to talk to Coach Lamanji.
To get music going at your practice?
He doesn't love music. For 3 years, we practiced to music. We haven't played music one time.
So you want me to talk to him so that he'll
Say,
play
hey,
music?
say, hey, Coach, man, I got you. I can be the DJ. I'll make sure it's radio edit, no cussing, this, that, and the other. Like,
I'll create a playlist
The
for you
guys
guys.
have told me that they want to play music. Just see what he says.
Okay.
Get back to me.
Yeah,
on
I
that.
got you.
If your neck's a little thinner, I know he rung it.
I'll talk to him. I'll talk to him after the game on Friday,
Yeah,
right?
well, let him, hey, if we don't get a win,
Yeah,
don't-
I'm running.
Yeah,
I'm
don't,
running.
If we don't get a dub, don't say a word.
Mike Schaefer joining us now. Schaefer, good morning, man.
Good morning.
Mike J, how are you?
Good. I don't know when the last time I saw this iteration of Coffee and Cream was. It's,
Hey, you got jokes this morning,
Amigos,
Schaefer?
okay.
Do you have jokes
Been a
this
few.
morning, Mike
Yeah,
J?
I got jokes. I turn it on. I get into the stream, and I'm watching a Chicago Bear fan and a Wisconsin Badgers fan going back and forth about
Hater.
televisions. And, you know.
I remember a long time ago, like
I wish
5
I could
minutes
read
ago,
the
and I
logo
used
on
to
your
like
hat.
you. That was cool. That was a lot. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's better than when you wear your Iowa gear as a recruiting coordinator.
Yeah, still recruiting for Iowa, huh?
It's amazing. You landed a kid in years, but you know they keep you on the payroll.
Couple of weeks ago, Coach Woods was like, "Yeah, so wait, are you on or off payroll?" Question mark. I was like, ha, 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 "Funny man, you
can't say a
funny
thing.
man, you."
Sip it up.
So Mike J, you misscheduled last week. You were busy on Friday. You weren't one of the 5,000 in attendance on Friday night. Will you be at a high school football game this Friday?
Yeah, assuming weather permitting, I'll be at Elkhorn South, Lincoln Southeast on Thursday.
You just
night.
have to be a contrarian. You couldn't go to Millard North and Papio?
No, I mean I'm kind of got like scheduled out who I'm trying to hit when. You know, you've got to plan. You know, you got to have a plan in place, and so I don't know when I would see Elkhorn South otherwise. So I wanted to get eyes on Ashton Murphy this year and see what else is going on with the Storm. And then, you know, it's nice with Lincoln Southeast because I don't know what to make of them. I mean, they might be the best team in Lincoln, but I don't know what that means this year necessarily.
Yeah, isn't it weird? Some people put them at like a 3 or 4 win team. Some people, you know, have them in the top 10.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of it is where will they find offense besides Cash Butenbach? I mean, they might have, you know, 60 carries in the way that Lincoln Southeast plays. So it'll be, you know, that'll be an interesting first game for both of those teams. And then I kind of want to watch Ronner as well. I haven't seen him since last November and want to get eyes on that too. So that game works out, but I also don't know. I mean, if it's 100 and some degrees at kickoff on field turf, you're not going to have these kids play that game, right? Like this is a bad week for the weather to be like this. It's already these first couple games. You have to add an additional hour for all the cramping stoppages as it is. So, it's this heat wave needed to come like 3 weeks ago or be 3 weeks later.
We're so overly paranoid at Westside. They should nickname one of our periods, call it the cramping period, because we've done all this research on cramps and stuff like that. And it turns out the number one cause from a couple of these studies are that folks don't simulate game situations enough before the first game. So, Mike J., like, not to give away the secret to tell you how the sausage is made, I couldn't care less if Prep knows, but like within the first 18 to 22 minutes of practice, we are full speed for long periods of time just to make sure that the hyperactivity is where it needs to be. And I'm not even going to get into the whole pickle juice and salt thing that has been crammed down our throats since last Wednesday. Our staff was recruiting Prep Bellevue West. They were charting cramps to put in our scouting report for Saturday, right? Like,
Can we get these people to stop by Nebraska basketball and visit?
No stone unturned over there in the district. I've heard the word cramp 1,000 times, man. I cringed when I heard you say it.
Well, look, I'm sorry. It's just, you know as well as I do what early season football brings in late August.
Who's having a tougher time turning the heads in Lincoln? Is it a Bauman or Pierre Allen Jr.?
For me, it'd be Dash. I mean, I thought this was a guy, and I know he went and camped at Nebraska. I thought he would get more attention from Nebraska's staff. I mean, he's a track guy. I think he's got a good build. I think he's a good football player. Like, I'm a little surprised he's ending up at Wyoming, and that's not a bad thing by any means. But I look at this sort of renaissance of in-state Nebraska football, and it's sort of surprising to me that he's kind of the guy on the outside looking in a little bit here this year. And so, but that's Nebraska's loss or anybody else's loss is Wyoming's gain. I think he's a really good player. I thought that, these last couple of years of all the Lincoln East games I've taken in. And so I was really intrigued to see what it was going to look like from a camp schedule, and it just never really materialized for him the way that I thought that it would. Pierre Allen still has some more time, and I think he needs, a good season. I think the hard thing is trying to figure out what exactly he is for your football team. I mean, he's kind of got a tweener build, and so can he be a jack linebacker? Or does he have to really bulk up and be, a little undersized as a defensive lineman? So I'm curious to see him on Thursday night too. I know that he is certainly vocal in terms of how things are going and in terms of the edits that he receives and everything else. But I don't know that there's like a ton of recruiting traction behind that yet. And he needs to go create it this season.
Either one of you surprised at the preferred walk-on offer for Jacob Arope, who already has the Northwest Missouri State offer from Nebraska? Is there anything that happened on Friday night when you go back for a rewatch that discourages you from that, Schaefer?
I haven't dove into Jacob Arope a lot. I got to be honest. I mean, the most of my bulk of work this weekend was trying to get a hold of Grant Bricks, and let me tell you, it did not work. So
you got to get a hold of.
Hey, one of my best buddies.
It looks like I'm going to be heading back up to
is a Magnolia aficionado. So if you want to talk to my guy Kevin Schaefer, I got a guy that knows all the scoop. He turned me on to Bricks when Bricks only had one offer. And he said, hey, you may want to pass this along. This guy's starting to garner some attention. So I put you in touch with my guy.
What are the vibes you're getting from him, at least in the conversations you've had with him?
Well, I mean, I haven't had that many conversations. And when I do, he's very good at saying all of the right things while offering, some crumbs, but you don't know you still don't know what exactly is going to be the ultimate deciding factor. I mean, he lists several things. He wants to play for a program that's going to be successful. He wants to have a great relationship with his offensive line coach and his strength coach. And I know that he has a good relationship with Corey Campbell, and I think it's being built with Rhule, and he obviously loves Matt Rhule. The biggest thing for me with Grant Brix, and the reason why I think Nebraska, if I had to pick, like someone's like, you got to tell me where he's going right now, blah, blah, blah. And I would guess Nebraska because of the proximity. I think he's pretty close with his family. It's 90 minutes roughly from his house to Memorial Stadium. And Nebraska's done a really nice job recruiting him. And I feel like he's hearing constantly from Daniel Kalen and Carter Nelson, who become quite the tag team of recruiting, at least it related to Grant Brix. So I think all of that sort of points in the direction of Nebraska. And then you just hear things about Oklahoma, and he really likes Oklahoma's line coach. I mean, I think if there's a reason Oklahoma wins this recruitment, it's because of, I can't think of his name, Bill Biedenbaugh, I think. That one. He's put so many guys in the NFL, and he's been at Oklahoma for a long time. And I think he really has the trust of Grant Brix. So I think those are your two top candidates right now. But when you call the head coach and he's like, man, I stopped asking because I don't know either. He's not telling me. So, and I believe Coach Straight on that. I don't think he's just making that up. So I think this has been a very internal process, and we're all just going to be on the outside waiting. And there's no guarantee that a decision's happening this week either. That's the other thing. He could just easily take it into the season. He doesn't owe it to anyone. And he even told me, even if a decision gets made, not like he's going to throw himself a parade or have a hat ceremony or anything like that. It's going to get leaked out some other fashion, I'm sure.
What was your sense with Connor Riley and K-State?
Likes him a lot.
Because Connor Riley is pretty spectacular.
Oh, yeah. No, I think he's one of those guys that he's in a great spot for him. He can recruit the Midwest. He's built a pipeline. They're really excited about their future offensive line down there, let alone the guys that are going to be starting for him this upcoming year. So I just know from talking to our Kansas State guy, the confidence seems to be waning slightly there. And I don't know if that's just because there's just been more reports from the Oklahoma, Nebraska writers. But it just seems like maybe Kansas State's pulling third right now. But that could change over time, too. I mean, if Grant Brix really decides to play this thing out, the team that's going to look the best on the field this year out of these three, in my mind, is Kansas State. So that could help bring them back around. So it just all comes down to when and why Grant Brix decides to shut things down.
Mike Schaefer, Nebraska football and recruiting for 24/7 Sports with us right now at Mike J. Schaefer on Twitter. Mike, let's take this to Nebraska now. Are we at the point to where it's unlikely Gilbert gets his waiver?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. I don't know all the details of it. We've heard some whispers that it's not looking particularly good at this point in time. It seems like there's some sort of component to it that they've got to get together with Georgia and have that figured out. I mean, that's just sort of the whisper, rumor, innuendo that I've heard. But whether that's true or not, I can't speak to it. Ultimately, it's either going to be a thumb up or a thumb down, and it feels like it's going to be a thumb down, to which then I wonder whether we ever see Gilbert at Nebraska. I was like playing in an actual game, because I wonder if he doesn't get a waiver this year, what would keep him in college football next year? Like he needs to play. And this year, I think, was sort of the jumping off point to getting back into the NFL's radar. So that certainly will be interesting to me how that all plays out if he doesn't ultimately get that waiver.
Schaefer, if you're kind of taking a look at this football team, and I was telling Drew Down, it was weird. A couple years ago, Coach Chinander had that deal right after the bye and Thanksgiving where he was like, hey, I think we found one in Blaise Gunnerson. And then last year, we started to kind of see him playing. Both Coach Bush and Coach Joseph really like Blaise Gunnerson. We're back again this year, and he potentially is a starter. Did you see this? Maybe not the rise in terms of, hey, we like Blaise Gunnerson, we think he's fully healthy, but the positional switch in his frame allowing him to be playing where he's playing now and still garner the love.
Yeah, I've always kind of viewed Blaise Gunnarsson as more of a kind of an upside version of Ben Stilley. I think their body types were really similar. I think that he has a little bit more athleticism than Ben, who Ben was a multi-year starter. I don't want that to end a guy who's getting a cup of coffee in the NFL. I don't want that to come off as like any kind of slight to Ben Stilley. So if I think you have a little more potential than that, that means I think you're a guy who should be, competing at an NFL training camp in a few years. But the problem for Blaise, to me, hasn't been necessarily finding him a home. It's getting him on the field and keeping him healthy for long durations of time. And this goes back to basically he had a great sophomore year, and then after that, he hasn't had a year that's been injury-free out of his last 5. So I think if he can stay healthy, there's a great chance he can be productive. I've always kind of been pretty high on Blaise Gunnarsson. It's just been a matter of can he stack enough days together and stay out onto the field that he can give you a performance that can be helpful long term.
Now, as we heard from Coach Rhule, that is, on Saturday, Schaefer, talking about the captains and not having them until really bowl season if it came down to it. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was a different look on how growth happens throughout the year. And now we talk about it all the time on the show. Not everyone's a leader, even though that's kind of what's being pushed right now. But it gets the chance to see everybody do it at least once. Do you like the idea? Because it promotes every player at some point to need to take responsibility of leading?
Yeah, what I like about it is that I think it gives them a level of team ownership. Like you get this experience, or you get a piece of this team, and maybe you're not the vocal guy, but you're a lead by example type, or you're just someone who's showing up and doing what's asked of you and getting that 1% better each time out. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can highlight people on your roster who are doing the right things without it always having to be a guy that's necessarily vocally speaking, or even someone that we see in the media all the time. I think, there's countless examples in my career of guys that'll be available to get up and talk like a leader, but don't have that, fellowship and those followers in the room. And so I do think that, a lot more happens in the locker room or in these position rooms where guys can be leaders that aren't necessarily the people that we think of as media or fans. And this is a good way to be able to highlight some of that. And it's a good way to, if a guy has a great week of practice, he's a walk-on player for you, and you can still celebrate this fact by letting him go be a captain for a week, even if he's not necessarily a guy that's going to go help you, in 20 reps in that game or what have you. So again, to me, it's about team ownership and accountability. And I think I like it. I mean, it's unique. I don't know that it's something I would be accustomed to for every game for the duration of Matt Rhule's career, but it's certainly unique this first year.
Checkers or chess? Usually things that come out.
I'm bad at both.
Usually things that come out via film are very strategic. Anthony Grant filming Gabe Ervin, going through locker rooms, talking about, how nice it is, competition. A guy that was basically just called out multiple ways over the weekend. We say clearly number one for Gabe Ervin. Good gamesmanship or culture finally setting in where a guy can be allowed to do a video promotion in the same position group as a guy that was just named the air quotes clear number one.
Well, aren't these guys friends, from their time at
I always say the magic happens is when you can cheer for somebody else at your own expense.
Yeah, and
so maybe they are.
I think they have that. They have at least some relationship from going to the same high school down in Georgia. And, Anthony Grant and Gabe Ervin have both talked about that this summer. I will admit to being surprised at how this sort of played out on Saturday.
Hey, me too. And I still don't believe it. So
okay, well, that makes me feel better because I kind of did a little table pounding for, hey, Anthony Grant's going to be the guy.
Me too. I still think he'll be their leading rusher. So
good. All right, we can
I'm either going to be really stupid or really smart. We'll see, because I have no idea right now.
I'm willing to stand there right there with you so we can have the tomatoes pelting us when we're completely wrong. And we can knock everybody. But yeah, I was surprised by that. I really was. And I don't know what I'm not sure of is if it's just like a new issue, if it's been an issue all throughout fall camp. I don't remember a lot of fumbles for Anthony Grant last year. So it was just, it caught me by surprise. It really did. Because, just on, what was it, Thursday or Tuesday? Like it was kind of like, man, look at what Anthony Grant has kind of done in a short amount of time. Look at Matt Rhule
running with the ones.
Right.
It was all
standard. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like fumbles. He's third, So it was a little jarring, but yeah, we'll see what that ultimately means. I do feel like this isn't a coaching staff where if something's said like that, well, one, it's a little unusual that it's that transparent, but that's a whole other
yeah. It's like, wow.
Two, I don't think that means that Anthony Grant is going to be set in the doghouse and never let out in a way that we would have seen under some other coaches.
They're going to need them all.
Yeah. And what tells me that is that you go all the way back to the beginning of the spring. Who got suspended for like the first two practices? Anthony Grant, and then this is the sort of like rise back up into the good graces. It seemed like it culminated last week on Tuesday. And so I just don't think he's not just going to be set off to the side and forgot about. And I don't know if it was a motivational thing. I don't know what it was, but it was certainly caught my attention from Saturday's media availability, as I think it did everybody else.
Schaefer, last thing here. We're down to 3 until we get to know who our single-digit wearers will be for the season.
Oh, Lord.
Do you think Newsome is going
this the new black shirts?
Do you think,
Man. Hey, how about Coach Rhule yesterday or the other day? And he goes, I've never had anybody ask me about depth charts as much as anybody. You guys run this place.
I don't believe that.
Do you think Newsome will get his 6 back?
I'd be a little surprised if he doesn't, right? Like,
me too.
That's what I
think. But what about Hartzog?
Well, maybe
you talk about a guy that come up.
Let me turn a question back to you guys. Do we think that Matt Rhule is calculating enough that there's a rhyme or reason as to why these are getting announced, how they're getting announced, when they're getting announced?
1,000%.
So is it possible that he has already known and has known for a while who is getting a single-digit number, and that's why the number 6 hasn't, disappeared?
Do you think that they've come in weird order? Like, why didn't he just go 0 through 3 or 4, 5? Letting guys pick.
It all feels odd, to say the least.
Oh, no, nobody wanted 6?
Well, I don't know if anybody wanted to deal with taking it.
Is Newsome good? Find somebody sleep in the locker room. You took my 6.
Exactly. You don't have my 6. You took.
It doesn't seem like that builds the family atmosphere that you're looking for, So I expect him to have that. The Malcolm Hartzog one is interesting too. It's hard because there's like 8 guys I like in their secondary, and I mean they can play 5, I guess now, but there's like 3 others where it's like, okay, well, Deshaun Singleton, and we got all these other guys. So
my dude.
I would like to. I would really like to see kind of how it plays out for the secondary over this first month. I think they're going to be as interesting as a position group as there is on defense.
Shay, appreciate the time, man. We'll talk next week.
Thanks, Mike J.
All right, guys. Have a good one.
Sports 6 Pack up next.
We'll be right back in 5 minutes. We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
All right, mix up. Matt Schick at 9:30, Sports Six Pack at 9:45. So we welcome in Mr. Matt Schick right now, who was just here live in person. And hopefully you made it out to the event to see the Schick and Nick show live from the newly renovated Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. It was the last event of the old restaurant. Matt, good morning.
Morning. Andrew, great to catch up with you. It was a great night. I am back in Charlotte. I am on my way home. It was a quick turnaround, but it was well worth it.
I forget that you don't live here.
Matty, I'm dying. I don't even know if you've thought about this. Like, you endeared yourself. You're a Colorado guy, Colorado fan. Sometimes you draw the ire of Nebraskans. You can come, go, tell a few laughs, but it's all this. You're like this beloved figure. How'd that happen? Like this, is that like, did you draw this up? It's crazy because there aren't a lot of people that have done it your way with that history and still come out smelling like a rose?
It's really funny and insightful that you say that, because at the end of the show last night, I said something very similar at the end of the show, and my comment was, because I mean, it was just a sold out venue, and people, taking pictures afterwards.
Yeah.
It's just, and I do catch myself and stop and think, wow, this is a pretty remarkable situation. And I said at the end of the show, I said, the guy to my left, Nick Baugh, is a legend in the state.
Mm-hmm.
He can do no wrong. Like, he is the guy. And Lincoln Southeast, Creighton, I mean, the guy is just awesome. And I said, I am the outsider. I said, I am the guy from the University of Colorado, came into your state, and you welcome me in such a way that every time I get off the plane in Omaha, whether I'm with my family or not, like I was by myself 2 nights ago when I stepped off at 11:30 at night, I walked through the airport, and I said, I'm filled with such emotion, energy, nothing but good feelings, and it's because of the way that the city and the state embraced me. And I'll tell you, like, it didn't start great. Like, I showed up in Kearney, Nebraska, doing local television, and I was covering. They asked me to wear a Husker pin the night that Nebraska played Miami in the Rose Bowl for the national championship. And I told them I'm not wearing the pin. And so I don't think I wore the pin that night. But I just graduated like months prior. And so I go from that to, then come to Omaha, and then I start doing some different kind of stories, and you just kind of, the way I went about it is just make people feel a certain way. Because it wasn't my background that was going to win people over. It's not like I'm from Tecumseh and made this great catch.
Yeah, but
right?
they've chewed up and spat out folks for much less, right? It's like a lot of people have tried it. It just hasn't worked.
Yeah, that's true. I'd like to think that my approach at Channel 7 was unique enough and caused people to laugh and enjoy watching me, that the last thing they think about is where I went to school. And so that's where I think, and plus Nebraskans are just great people. And so doing those stories, and then the Schick and Nick show took it to a different level where you're just doing a show for 3 hours and you're making people laugh. And then when the show went off the air, I mean, people are sending us notes, and we even got comments last night about people. A guy came up to us. He's like a 6'5" guy saying, like, when you went off the air, I was in tears. Like, those things matter. Those things matter to people, and it doesn't necessarily matter where you went to school or what you did or what you said. It's how you made them feel, and we've tried to kind of subscribe to that notion.
Oh shoot, man! I have to take advantage of some of your expertise while we got you. We were talking Michigan and Ann Arbor and all the distractions with one of the Michigan beat writers, and I was telling Andrew, I said it's almost like these guys are flying under the radar with a fantastic team, about as much as a top 5 team can fly under the radar. But I'm looking at Michigan up front. A couple of my buddies, one used to coach there. He said this is as good a depth along the D line as Michigan has had in the last 25 years, and I had to take a step back. Is Michigan that team under this coach?
Yeah, they are right now. It's really incredible to see what happened. He has built this team the Michigan way. He's building it from the inside out. There aren't a lot of people that can name a receiver for Michigan right now. And that doesn't matter, right? I mean, Cornelius Johnson, you can go down the list and name a few if you cover the team and you cover the Big Ten. But this is a offensive line, defensive line, built, run game, Michigan, somewhat dynamic quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. Chris Jenkins along that defensive front is a freak and a guy that you're probably going to know a lot about during the season. This is a team that out of the top 3 or 4 teams, Damon, I mean, you know this, they're the only one with the returning starting quarterback. Those things matter, but they're not so reliant on that spot. I mean, Cade McNamara took them to the playoffs. So this is they are that team, and anything short, truly, I truly believe this, anything short of a national championship is a disappointment.
It's crazy how we just anointed, Andrew and I talked about this. We just anoint Georgia and Ohio State as if they aren't breaking in first-time starters at quarterback.
Right. It's true, but at some point, just when you stack top 5 classes on top of each other, you get the benefit of the doubt. When you can have your third-string quarterback win you a national championship in Cardale Jones, all doubt is removed from your program.
Yeah, good point.
So I think that's kind of where they're at right now. But that whole quarterback situation is really interesting too. You know, with Devin Brown, it's like, did Ryan Day look at last year and go, look, man, C.J. Stroud played lights out, and he was the most dynamic player on the field. He was the best player on the field, and we still came up short. I need someone close to that. I need someone with a ceiling, the highest ceiling that I can find at quarterback, and maybe that is Devin Brown, albeit inexperienced. We'll see.
Now, Schick, a more impactful transfer at the quarterback position for what the offense wants to do, Tanner Mordecai or Cade McNamara this year?
Well, most impactful transfer based on what they want to do is Tanner Mordecai.
Mm-hmm.
He has to play well for them to do well, even though they have Braylon Allen. But this is going to be such a culture shift, and Coach Longo and Stickle and what they're doing there. I was talking to a beat writer on Monday, actually, and I said, how different is this going to look? This is Jim Polzine, covers the team, and he's like, well, I've told my readers and people who listen to me to just be patient because it's going to be very different. It's going to be, he goes, they will take the field. He goes, we've seen some practices, and every time I've watched them, it's 4 receiver sets. It's 11 personnel. That's just the way it's going to be. And so get used to it. So Tanner Mordecai's got to do it. Cade McNamara we've seen quarterbacks of the past. This was a decent Iowa team last year that had a terrible quarterback. So Cade McNamara is just distribute, do your thing. You don't have to wear an S on your chest. Just don't screw it up, and this team will win 8 or 9 games, between 7 and 9 games this year at least.
I hear the lousy music. The Big 12 is going to come out smelling like a rose after a lot of consternation, I think, especially as a basketball conference. If you have to take a flyer, Texas Tech, or TCU?
I'm taking a flyer on Texas Tech.
Me too, my man.
Yep.
Matt Schick, you just had to blow up his head some more today, huh?
I like them. I think they're going to be sneaky.
Yeah, no, I agree. They got the right head coach. They got the right coach. They beat Texas last year. Let's go.
Schick, appreciate the time, man.
Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate it, fellas.
6-pack up next.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
So currently, DB grabbed a lid. He's gonna try to pick up this spider. I feel a little dinged up. I can't take my body over to Dingman's, but you can take your car
After the
there.
show, right?
No, I got this. You see, I slid the paper under. I got it in a cup. I'm gonna take good care of him or her. I assume it's a dude. If it was a female, it would be bigger. It is a monster.
He goes, I'm not going to squish him. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'd want my shoe on top of that thing.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest spider that I have not seen that I've gone to a pet store
Like
for.
That
thing was just out here chilling.
I mean, we talk ghost stories and haunted houses already today, and walking in the dark and exorcism and things like that.
That's one of those spiders you
Now
see in
we're
a
seeing
scary
spiders.
movie.
Oh.
You see that in a scary movie where somebody takes that and throws it in your bed.
Yeah, dude, Shane dropped an expletive on the
Yeah,
spider.
he
That
did.
spider didn't do anything to you.
Yeah, I know, and I don't want it to.
I couldn't
He
believe
called
you called
it
it a jerk.
He called it an effer.
Oh,
Like,
that's what he said.
You can't say that.
I said a footballer.
Yeah, he did say a footballer. Yeah, that's what it was.
I was like, that
You
seems
gonna
to.
take that to the game on Friday?
I don't know, like,
He
because
wants
I'm
to
gonna
see a
keep.
little West Side Prep
I'm
action?
gonna keep the lid on there for a second. Do you have to poke holes like when you were a kid?
Dude, I gotta be honest, man. It would be dead already.
Why?
If it were me, it'd be dead already.
Well, how are you gonna kill it?
Oh, flip flop, chuck it.
Would you
Chuck this thing down.
Would you throw the flip flops away? Because you're not. There would be so much juice on that thing,
And I'd rub it on Shane's backpack.
dude. It's a fatty.
I would be so pissed. I'd call you a footballer over and over and over again.
So you came today, and his backpack was on this rolling
Mad.
chair.
I would be
and I walked
pissed.
over.
Yeah,
and
I don't want it on the. I don't want it on the floor.
So
I don't want my backpack on the floor.
Can I tell the story?
No.
I walk over to go get this chair, and he goes, "Don't put my backpack on the floor."
And I have no
Meanwhile,
idea.
it's in my hand.
And I have no idea if you did because there's a wall here. So I have no idea. You didn't put my backpack on the floor, did you?
No, it didn't hit the floor. You got lucky. It would have gone on the floor, though.
I would have been mad.
Do you know why I'm silent? Because I have snapped on more than one occasion for people putting their work or backpacks on the kitchen counter.
Oh,
well, that's what I'm saying. I
That's
don't.
gross.
It's kind of the same concept though. So
It's just the opposite. Whereas, and I don't want mine on the back on
Like,
the floor
I
because I
have-
might put it on my kitchen counter.
But
which
you know
is
who
fine.
sat in this chair? Like, no, you don't know. They don't clean this.
There's no
rolling
other
chair.
place to put it. Normally,
they don't clean.
Normally,
This
there's.
fired up.
Normally, there's. I'm standing. I'm not sitting. Normally,
the spider's got everybody annoyed. Meanwhile, the biggest baby in the room is the one that's just chilling.
Everybody's a little nervous. I know.
Shane,
I'm gonna let that thing.
Your backpack's on top of other stuff that probably has been collecting dust for the past.
But it's not sitting on the floor though, where there's a gigantic spider sitting like 2 feet from it.
That's a good point. The spider could have gone in the backpack.
I would have been. I would have been pissed.
That's a good point.
God, I would have been calling
if
you.
That would have been on if that would have been on your car mat in the car, would you be a prime candidate for Dingman's? Because I'm dead serious. He would have swerved off the road and hit something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, people have swerved off the road for less.
Dingman's for sure.
120th and Maple. They got a lot of locations.
I'm a little bit nervous over here. I got a big ass spider sitting right over there. It's right over there.
Shane, I got you. Open up a 6-pack. Open up a 6-pack.
Yeah, man. Have a couple.
And have a beer, man. Have a beer. Because it's sports 6-pack.
This dude is mad. I said, hey, I'm just going to slide a paper under
I'm nervous.
It, flip a cup over. And he's like, no. Do it after I leave. Do it after I leave.
Yes, I'm already packing up right now and turning stuff off.
That's why you don't want your backpack on the floor.
No, I don't want my backpack on the floor.
Ken on YouTube. You ladies done arguing about
right,
etiquette for staring or storing your handbags?
Yeah, if you want a gigantic spider as big as my hand in your bag.
Play the 6-pack, you whack job. Jeez.
I'm nervous. I don't even know where it's at.
Oh my gosh.
What are we doing here?
He's too busy standing.
I like the little back of you guys. Shane ain't having it. You made him stand up and look through his little window.
Little playhouse.
You want the 6-pack here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Time now for the Sports 6-Pack, presented by Zipline Brewing Company, makers of Dear Old Nebraska Brew, the official beer of Nebraska alumni.
All right, Zipline Brewing, the presenting sponsor of the Sports 6-Pack. You can get yourself a case of the can opener Tropical Ale at your favorite Zipline location. We got to speed this thing up, Shaner. Let's do question number 1.
Well, I'm already on beer number 2. So
Question number 1.
You shotgun that first?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Chris in Omaha, how much of a average is Nebraska at going into game 1 because Minnesota just doesn't have a lot to look? And it says how much of an advantage is Nebraska at going into. Everybody's a little nervous today.
I don't know if
I can't read.
I can't read. Well, there's a giant spider over there.
All right, advantage Nebraska, Minnesota.
How
what
much
are we?
of it? Good Lord! How much of an advantage is Nebraska? Because Minnesota doesn't have a lot on them. Right. That's basically the question.
I feel like it's even just because Nebraska has so many new pieces.
Is it still 7.5, 6.5?
I have not even remotely taken a peek.
I haven't checked the line. I think it was 7.5 when we first checked. I think it's pretty close too. A new team, new look. Minnesota will be prepared for whatever comes their way, so that won't come as a shock to anybody. But it advantage Nebraska in this case of, hey, we at least have seen what this Minnesota team was last year with Callie McManus coming in and playing against the Huskers at one point and knowing what they kind of like to do. And Coach Rhule is such a philosopher, as you like to say.
Are you a philosopher? Yes.
He does his
I
homework.
think very deeply.
And let's just say he's been reading the history books, and they'll plan well for this game.
I think it breaks even. Nebraska's so new, so many new faces, new staff. It offsets the fact that there's some familiarity with Minnesota and having an advantage with tape.
Question number 2.
Victor in Omaha or in Lincoln, what's the ideal landing spot for Jonathan Taylor?
Oladipo, send him to Chicago.
That would be unbelievable.
Let him play with Fields. They both will flourish. DJ Moore will vault to everybody's number 1 trade fantasy acquisition. Send him to Chicago. That would be my.
I could see him going to Miami too. They have the carousel of running backs down there, and nobody's really.
He's a rhythm guy. He's a rhythm guy. So go where he can get some lion's share. Chi-Town, baby. He's a Wisconsin guy.
Leo Herbert a ton last year though over Montgomery.
Still on a rookie deal. Not basic. Not going to cost you anything.
Oh, I'm for it. I'm all for Jonathan Taylor.
Let him play and get Fields better. Yeah.
Question number 3.
College quarterback question. How concerning is it for Ohio State that Kyle McCord hasn't grasped the job yet?
I think it is pretty concerning with
Oh,
how we
right there
talked
with you.
about it.
Right there with you.
Everybody
I know
had
everybody
him
thinks
top
you just
3.
you just throw it out there and you let all these guys run. No, I think it's concerning. You want to play for it all. You can't be at this stage, I think, at the quarterback spot.
Well, we were talking about Big Ten quarterback rankings just months ago,
And he was in everybody's top three. Yeah,
top 3.
I remember.
And if he doesn't have the job yet, that's a problem.
Great concern.
All right.
Question number 4.
Dylan in Omaha. If Coach Rhule doesn't like playing freshman kickers, as you said yesterday, DB, do you think Tristan ends up as being the starter that Rhule's personal liking for not doing something one way will hold him back?
Yeah, I believe he will concede.
Okay.
Freshman or
Well, you
not.
have to. If you name him the starter, you just have to.
I believe he'll concede, and it will be Magnum TA, and he'll be fine.
I've been on the TA train for a long time. I've set high expectations for him. I'd put him already up there with what he could be with the Henrys and the Cooks of the world. So,
Now he's a Sunday talent, but talent you still have to go out and perform.
he's through the roof right now.
Yeah,
His ceiling is way up there.
got a Sunday leg.
All right, question 5. Jordan and Lincoln, paging the predictors of the world. The only 2 I trust on the airwaves. Who's the team to keep an eye to sneak into the playoffs on as the MLB regular season comes to an end?
So a sneaker pick for MLB playoffs?
Yep.
I still think it's the Mariners.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. I think watch out for the D-backs. They're starting to get their feet again.
Yeah, we'll see if there's enough room, right, with the Central floundering and the East kind of muddling.
Right.
You're right. That window may open up for them.
I'll go D-backs there, Shane.
I'm going to take the Mariners.
All right, question number 6. Would you rather have a 10-hour dinner with your least favorite political figure or attend a 10-hour concert of a music group that you can't stand?
Dinner all day long.
I'd probably go to the concert.
Dinner. I hate bad music. I don't like loud. Not even discussion.
I could people watch at this concert for 10 hours, and that'd be cool with me.
I would chill with Jimmy Carter.
You know what I'd take for a 10?
Just because we would just talk about being a physicist. I wouldn't talk about foreign politics.
I just don't even want to be around a politician.
You know what I'd take for a 10?
I'd chill with Nixon for 10 hours.
A politician.
Dude, bad music though.
Like I said, people watch. I'm a people watcher.
You know what I'd take for a 10?
What song is that?
I don't know, man. I got issues.
Here's what I'd take for a 10, a size 10 to that spider over there.
Dude, we're gonna bother this bad
Kick
boy.
his ass out of here.
We'll be back tomorrow.